It's the AM show. Welcome to Tuesday. My name is Benjamin Akakbo. As always, doing this together with Abibata. From us to you, we love you. Thank you for joining us. Now, coming up on the show this morning, we'll be joined by Maxwell Lookouto. He is an NDC parliamentary candidate elect for Salton, and he is our guest as we get into the newspapers right after the news. But then, we bring you the big stories. Today, we delve into issues surrounding the governing New Patriotic Party's flag bearership race. A number of candidates have taken up the forms to file. So far, 5 of them have picked forms to contest the elections. These include the current Vice President, Dr. Bawumia, former Energy Minister, Wachi Ejako, former General Secretary of the party, Kwabena J. Japong, former Member of Parliament for Mampong, Francis Adainimo, and former Agriculture Minister, Dr. Uswe Friyakutu. All of them lacing their boots to contend. We analyze all of these men and what they bring to the table with our analysts who'll be joining us for breakfast. Also on this show this morning, a conversation you simply cannot miss. The Peasant Farmers Association of Ghana has been looking into government's Planting for Food and Jobs program. Per its findings, government's inability to spend the agriculture budget as planned continues to hamper efforts towards achieving the Sustainable Development Goal 2, that is zero hunger, by 2030. The Ministry of Food and Agriculture only spent 72% of the ministry's approved budget between 2018 and 2020, despite the substantial increases in allocations year on year. We can talk about the late payment of fertilizer companies and more. We'll bring you all the scoop on that as we analyze that latest report. And then we have a feature on Ghana's decaying stadia. My colleague Samuel Kojo-Brace has been looking at how the Esipong Stadium in the Western region has been left to rot due to bad management. Well, later on the show, we offer you that opportunity of joining us with your thoughts via the phone lines or on social media via the live stream. That's what we have planned for you this morning. Just stick and stay. Up next, the news. Thank you for staying for the news. In our first story, government says it is working around the clock to get independent power producers to agree to restructure debt to the tune of $1.5 billion. Per the new IMF program, government is expected to undertake energy sector reforms. Measures to be implemented include regular adjustment of tariffs, and the Minister of State at the Finance Ministry, Dr. Mohammed Amin Adam, says these are crucial measures necessary to ensure stable power supply.
Power sector is so critical that we must ensure that power is available, and not just available, but power supply is reliable so that industry can function. But the finances in the power sector continues to be a challenge for us. We have a shortfall of about $1.4 billion now in the sector. Which means that a number of measures have to be taken to reduce the shortfall. And this is why the government brought in the Energy Sector Recovery Program, which has led to the implementation of a number of measures, as a result of which the shortfall, which before was about $4 billion, has reduced to the 1.4 billion US dollars that we have. We have done this whilst keeping the lights on. You know, that is very significant. Whilst keeping the lights on, we have reduced the shortfall. You know, but some pockets of them. Yeah, but those are isolated issues that not you will. Issues about financing. No, I mean, no, until you get to that uninterruptible stage, which as a country we haven't gotten to, you will still have those isolated operational issues. But largely, we have kept the lights on. We never going back to the doom so that we experienced in the past.
Meanwhile, some residents of the Tichimani municipality of the Bono East region have condemned the recent hike in utility tariffs as announced by the Public Utilities Regulatory Commission. The residents contend that the 18% increment will compound the already worsening economic hardship in the country. Anasabit reports.
The Public Utilities Regulatory Commission has announced an increase of 18.36% in average end-user electricity consumer tariff for the second quarter of this year, and this according to some residents of the Techima municipality of the Bono East region, would compound the already worsening economic hardships in the country. These residents who have been expressing disappointments in the PURC says Ghanaians are already struggling with the hikes in the prices of goods and services, and this would worsen their plight.
As for the bills, especially the light bill, it's very too much. See, like young boy like me, I've been paying light bill like 130 cedis a month. My monthly salary is almost 330. So how can I make life? The bills is too much.
These residents say they were already faced with declining profit margins on their products and services, and the implementation of the new tariff would make life difficult for them.
The work we are doing, things is not easy. And if the work I'm doing to pay electricity, light bill, water bill, and school fees and all that, I can't survive. So they have to do something about it.
Salifu, also known as Officer, is afraid the new tariff, if not checked, would lead to a rise in illegal connections by consumers.
We see the electricity, how they increase the price. It can't help. Because the price that we are paying, we are still complaining, and someone is coming to add. So this it let people, it will let illegal become more, because I can't sleep darkness. I have to use light, and I can't get the money to pay. When I get illegal, I must use it. So VR people, it will help them.
They are all appealing to government and the PURC to reconsider this decision and work towards maintaining the current tariff to save their businesses from collapsing.
How can a small boy like me pay 130 cedis light bill for a month? And we have other utility bills too. So we plead them. They have to do something for us.
They should try to bring the price down so that when the price be affordable, everybody can afford the price or afford the money to pay.
Techiman Area Manager for the Northern Electricity Distribution Company, John Tariff, admonished consumers to work towards using power judiciously and stay disciplined in their use of electricity.
Upwards adjustment of the tariff is good for the utilities. However, we are not oblivious of the difficulties consumers have to pay. We are equally consumers. We use electricity and we pay for it. But what is the option? The challenge is that people have difficulties to pay. But the good thing about electricity bills is that it is always commensurate with your income. Because if you cannot afford what uses the power in your room, you are never going to incur the cost of electricity.
He was, however, quick to add that the authority, as usual, would remain alert by monitoring people who are interested in power thefts. Anas Sabit, Joy News, Techiman.
In our next story, Asantehene Otumfuose II is worried about the loss of human capital due to the neglect of technical and vocational education in the country. He observes Ghana's educational system has failed to fully harness the potential of the people due to over-concentration on theoretical education. He spoke at the investiture of the Foundation Vice-Chancellor of the Akenten Apiamenka University of Skills Training and Entrepreneurial Development in Kumasi. Naya Ojima has more in this report.
The Asantehene observed the neglect of technical and vocational education has stifled development in the country. He commended an initiative to grant opportunity for arts students to train in engineering at the tertiary level.
The whole idea of an art student cannot be a science student, cannot be engineering. Someone who uses an initiative to design, draw, and we say that he cannot be an engineer. The initiative that he uses to visualize how to draw someone. And we left so many people in school because it was the type of English students which was introduced British education to say, now chew poor pass and forget. There was no initiative. We baba no akotro. No pass any amount O level, no akotro, no any GC A level, no akwa university. Those who couldn't do that, some of our mates were left there. We couldn't identify what they could do in terms of skills training. Some of them now, we've lost the human resource that we needed to deliver Ghana.
The Ministry of Education has reiterated its dedication to promoting innovation and creativity among the youth through implementation of policies and reforms that prioritize TVET and STEM education. Deputy Minister of Education in charge of TVET, Gifty Chum Ampofo, says the government will continue to invest in the sector to improve the capacity of trainees. She observed the government's policy to allow students without science background to switch to engineering has chalked some successes.
And the students, after 1 year intensive training, had done so well that this year they've gained admission to the various programs under engineering. Why did we do that? Because research has proved that with those globalizations, countries that have high percentage of engineers, we often have a lot of investors invest in those countries in areas of industrialization because the manpower availability is so high that they rush to these countries.
The Akenton Apiamenka University of Skills Training and Entrepreneurial Development is established with the mandate to train teachers in TVET and entrepreneurial development. The investiture has made Professor Frederick Kwekusafo the foundation vice-chancellor for the university. He acknowledged the importance of the university in the country's development.
AMUSTED is committed to equipping people with the science, art, and craft of teaching TVET because we are confident that the country could achieve quality TVET only when there are quality TVET teachers. I'm also humbly suggesting that we should begin to think seriously to teach TVET and STEM in the language that the student understands.
For Joy News, Nanaya Ojima, Kumasi.
Let's stay on education, and the Conference of Heads of Assisted Senior High Schools has bemoaned the spate of misappropriation of funds generated by the Parent Teachers Association Ghana. The association, recognized as an independent body, is not audited internally or externally. Members are alleged to be enriching themselves with funds generated. There is more in this report.
Vice Chairman of the Conference of Heads of Assisted Senior High Schools, Paul Kingsley Arthur, says funds generated by PTA are not being accounted for. He lamented the slow and lack of infrastructural development in schools despite the levies and funds paid to the Parent Teacher Association. He says the PTA's contribution could have supported the government's free SHS agenda in providing quality education.
PTA is becoming another source of income to some parents because they go to the school, all right, they organize PTA meetings, all right, but they organize PTA meetings, all right, but the money that they take do not come to the school. All with the schools that this time PTA is what? It's a separate entity from the school. It's an independent body from the school. So who are you, the headmaster, to ask him or her, where is the money? Where is the project going on? You get it. And that is killing the free SHS system. That is killing it. So I'm saying that there should be a policy where, even though it's independent, but the headmaster must be a security to what? Their check. Headmaster must be aware of how much has been taken from parents and where it is what? Saved. Are you getting me? Yes, when we are aware of this and we be able to monitor the project and supervise how the money is, the flow of money.
Mr. Arthur was speaking at the Parents-Teacher Conference held in Kumasi on the theme, the educational reforms in Ghana and the significant impact on the Ghanaian child. Meanwhile, there has been an appeal to inculcate the use of local languages in teaching at technical and vocational institutes. Applicants who are mostly semi-literate struggle in grasping courses taught in the English language. Coordinating Director of the Ashanti Regional Chapter of the Parent Teacher Association Ghana, Oswe Friye, believes that medium of communication will help in effective teaching and learning.
In the traditional or local areas or in our communities, when they go for seamstress or fitter, like they say, or all those kind of training, their masters or the trainers, they use the local language and they come out successfully. So we want the children to also come out of school well prepared to, so they feel that medium will help better.
Mona Lisa Frimpon reporting.
Now, a 75-year-old woman who has spent 21 years planting trees is encouraging more Ghanaians, especially women, to help restore the country's degraded forest resources. Comfort Bwachiwa, who owns a 300-hectare indigenous tree plantation, says the act promotes good health for the country. Oheming Tewia reports.
Bwachiwa, a timber merchant, responded to calls by the Forestry Commission 20 years ago, asking Ghanaians to venture into private tree plantations. Her company, Bwachiwa Enterprise, received 500 hectares of degraded Onyamso Forest Reserve to replant. Despite challenges, including high cost of labor and funding constraints, she has since managed to plant 300 hectares of her allocated lands. Since 2002, she has been growing indigenous tree species such as Hutung, Wawa, Emre and Mahogany. Her plantation is comparable to the size of 560 standard football fields in the Onyamso Forest Reserve in the Ashanti region.
I will encourage every woman who has the strength to go into tree plantation. Look at me now. I am very old, but because of the plantation, I don't look my age. When you preserve nature, that's what happens. God also protects and blesses you, so I will advise everybody to venture into tree plantation.
Madam Bwachiwa's struggles have paid off as a plantation, which is similar to a natural forest, attracted a visit by officials of the Forestry Commission, led by the Chief Executive, John Alote. The visiting team had their vehicles stuck in mud as they journeyed the plantation, a routine ordeal of Madam Bwachiwa and her workers. Mr. Alote was full of praise to Madam Bwachiwa for her perseverance and wants other women to follow her footsteps.
This place was degraded, so 500 hectares was allocated to Bwachiwa Enterprises to develop as a plantation site. As we speak today, they've developed about 300 hectares out of 500, and it is doing very well. It's over 20, some of the trees are over 20 years now. And as we went around, you could see some of them, the Fram, the Wawa, the Mahogany, all of them are doing well. This is a lady who has invested in this project, and we thought it twice. We'll come here, see at first hand how the trees are doing. Even as we speak about greening Ghana, planting trees, we need to showcase what the other people have done so far as tree planting is concerned.
Meanwhile, the Jaso District Forestry Manager, Anim Brew, says Madam Bwachiwa's plantation is impacting positively on the rain patterns in the area. According to him, the Forestry Commission will provide her the needed support to prevent illegal loggers and other perpetrators from invading the plantation.
Economically is good, environmentally is also wise to do that, because we know the contribution of the forest reserves in generating rainfall, and so we cannot discount what we are experiencing today. You could see the change of environment, and so it's a factor to what we are experiencing today.
From Jaso for Joy News, Oheming Tewia report.
Let's go on now to the Chief Executive Officer of Maslock, Abibata Mahama, who has indicated that girls have no excuse not to be in school following the introduction of the free senior high school. She says the issue of fee paying should not be a reason because government has taken that burden off. She spoke when she joined the Pagba Saha Foundation to celebrate World Menstrual Hygiene Day in Yendi.
Menstrual Health Day is set aside to highlight the challenges girls face when they are in their menses and the need for support to help address some of these challenges. Madam Abibata said even though the day was set aside to celebrate hygiene, there was the need for her to highlight issues of education. She urged the girls to complement government's effort by studying hard.
Even though today's program is dedicated to hygiene, I'm also urging you to take your studies seriously. So girl child education is very, very serious. And for now, you don't have an option to stay at home because your father or your mother is not able to pay for your school fees. With the benevolence of the president, we now have free SHS. So there is no excuse for girls to stay away because their parents are unable to give them money or to cater for their secondary education. And for that matter, I think that to complement the government's effort, we must be focused and study judiciously to become whoever we want to be in future.
The CEO of Pagaba Saha Foundation, Saudatu Al-Hassan, on her part, urged government to fulfill its promise of providing the people of Yendi with potable water.
And also, the last one I have to express is that our president, His Excellency Nana Akufo-Addo, promised us immediately that he will get us good water. And up to now, it's almost 6 years now, we've not heard anything. There was feasibility studies on it, and up to now, nothing has been done. And these students, they need water to change their underwear and other things. So we are pleading to government to come to our aid. We need the water back, so they should come and assist us.
The Maxwell CEO also donated learning materials to the Complementary Education Agency to aid in teaching of functional and occupational literacy. Speaking at the event, Madam Abibata said they have honored every item the CEA had requested.
We are happy to be here this morning to do a presentation to the CEA, that's the Complementary Education Agency, on behalf of the Dressmakers Association. As it was said already, I got a request from the Municipal Director for Complementary Education Agency, bringing a request to me to help the Dressmakers Association of Yendi. And in their request, they enumerated the quantities that they wanted. So whatever quantities that they have brought to me, I have provided all the quantities based on what they have brought to us.
Principal Director of the CEA, Alhaji Mohammed Al-Hassan Idris, said the support was to help the beneficiaries learn basic arithmetic to help in their skill.
The Yendi Municipal Office of CA, in consultation with the Northern Regional Directorate of CA, sought for support from the CEO of Maxwell, Honorable Asia Abibata Mahama to assist us effectively run the remedial classes CA program established for senior high school, junior high school dropouts in the municipality who are predominantly female, found in dressmaking establishment as apprentices. Mr. Chairman, the purpose of these classes is to support the beneficiaries to be able to do basic calculation and literacy to complement their skills pursued.
And that's the note on which we cap off the news. But up next, we'll be joined by the NDC's parliamentary candidate-elect for the Salton constituency, Maxwell Lookouto. He's our guest for the news review. Do stay. Well, thank you for staying with us on the AM show. Time now for us to dig into the papers. But this segment, of course, brought to us all by Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic. Now, they're offering free prostate screening free female fertility screening to all of us. So let's all make roads to Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic. And here's where we can find them. Here in Accra, they are at Spintex opposite the Shell signboard. In Kumasi, Kronumabwe here behind the Angel Educational Complex. They are in Takrady and Naji Estate, Tema Community 22, Techiman Hanswa and Esiama and Zama. If you'd like to call them, these are the numbers to call. 0244 867 068 or 0274 234 321. Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic, the end to chronic disease. But on that note, it's just the commencement of the news review, and we're joined this morning. We've seen him online a few times. Today he's in the studio. He is the NDC's parliamentary candidate elect for Salton constituency. Maxwell Lookouto is our guest. Good morning.
Good morning.
Did I pronounce your name properly?
Maxwell Lookouto.
Okay. You know, in some instances there's a to, and there's in some the stress is elsewhere. So I just had to be sure of that.
It's to.
It's to.
You are your bro, so I believe you know.
Yeah. So I just had to be some. I don't know whether it's anglicization or whatever. So some would say no, it's Lookouto. That sounds more like something from English, but Lookouto. Anyway, good to have you.
Good morning.
Thanks for coming aboard.
Thanks for your prayers.
And of course, I keep reiterating that we're doing these for the National Democratic Congress because they have had their primaries and all of that. When the other side, the New Patriotic Party also does, we'll bring them here and have those interactions with them. But very briefly on this, before we get into the papers, what was the road to Salton like for you? I mean, this feat, I had people come and sit here and talk about how much had to be spent, over $50,000, $50,000 to $80,000, and all of that. How did you get the nod of the people?
Yeah, so it's been a long journey. KV1, of course, is not a straight one.
Curveball, huh?
Yeah, it started very long ago. After university, I was in leadership on campus, and so people saw the ability to put things together and to organize people, and they felt that I could go into the game of politics. I decided otherwise that I want to do my personal work, my profession, and do other things as well. So I started off by putting myself together as an individual. I believe that for you to say you can lead a class of people, you should be able to be seen to be leading yourself. So I tried to make life quite meaningful or define my own life before wanting to define that of others. So I started off on my professional and a business line. After that, people saw the good in me, the philanthropic gestures that I had to roll out and how I play along with the people around me. People felt that this guy can go and put things together better for us. That's how come senior men came to me some 11 years ago, 12 years ago, and demanded that I go into the race of becoming the parliamentary candidate or eventually the MP of the constituency. I initially hesitated, but finally I had to yield and then went in. On 3 occasions I contested, and the last time I lost narrowly. This time
3 occasions?
Yeah, sure.
So this is your 4th?
This is my 4th. And so
wow.
The popular
that's a dogged...
Very, very long one. I wanted to give up, but I had to give a last shot to it, and finally it paid out. Consistency, ability to play along with people. They see the future role they intend to see in you now. They believe that you can do it, and so they give you the nod. And so that's how far I have come.
So it's been over 12 years now?
Yeah, almost 12 years.
Since you've been trying to get this seat?
Yes.
Just before we cross over to the papers, I just find it interesting. We've had a number of political elements who have, over the years, striven for certain political office. I think chief among them will be our president himself, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, who had, over the decades, wanted to become president. You are in a microcosm of that, becoming a member of parliament at the constituency level. Let's face reality. The constituency you have won puts you in pole position to become member of parliament. It's like saying an NPP candidate has won in Bantama or in certain places. It's almost a foregone conclusion. Not to say that the other sides will not get any votes, but to say that if you look at the gap, you can almost tell where this will head, Manshia and the rest. So it's almost there. I'm not saying, because anything can happen in politics. But what are you going to be doing between now and election day? Not just in preparing yourself, but in ensuring that you can actually deliver should you eventually get the nod?
Yeah, so what basically I have to do is that we still have a sitting MP. My responsibility as a PC is to pair with him so that whatever roles and responsibilities he has now, I help him fulfill them. Of course, there's a constituency executive committee on whose laps I'm supposed to be sitting and working. So as I speak, I'm putting myself together, putting some council of elders around me who will direct, former MPs, former DCEs, senior members of state who would be guiding. This is what you have to be doing at this moment. This is what you need to do. I don't intend to use my personal knowledge, just all intellect that I have arrived, and it's all going to be about me. So I'm putting these people together to see what kind of advice and counseling they will be giving. Of course, being around for some time, I really know what you are supposed to be going through. But as I speak, I'm just putting myself together, like you said, preparing, and then seeking counsel. I'll soon be meeting my constituency executive committee, so that will take a decision on the way out. Apparently, after all this, you need to meet your people again to say thank you to them for voting for you. We are putting plans together. After that, we'll be waiting on the National Democratic Party at the national level to give us direction. Actually, I was called by the caucus leader for the Volta region, Honorable Bejra. He's gone to the West African Parliament. Once he's back, we'll meet with him, and I'm sure that they'll be giving direction as to how we'll do it. I'm believing that my IP is going to help usher me into the whole system, because he sent me his congratulatory messages and also promised that he was going to give me every necessary support I need to succeed in my new role. So I'm just believing that gradually he's going to guide me. It's a long period of waiting between now and December 2024, when the vote is going to be done, and 7th January 2025. So of course, I still have a lot of things to do to mobilize resources to be able to fight the campaign, make myself visible in the constituency, and to make sure that I increase the number of votes that NDC has to garner.
Right.
The focus for now more is about how JM is going to win the 2024 national elections. And so, like you said, of course, it may look to almost everybody that as for your parliamentary seat is secure. Once you've won the primaries, it's done. But I'm not going to sit on my house. I'm going to make sure that I go to every nook and cranny of the constituency, gather the votes that we need to gather. People hitherto were trying to shift their posts from the NDC to the NPP in the constituency. It's my responsibility now to bring all of them on board and to make sure that we gather over 95% of the votes in the constituency for John Dramani Mahama.
Well, we can only wish you the best in those endeavors, as we wish any politicians who come on the show. But let's get into the newspapers now. I have the Daily Graphic, the Graphic Business, Economy Times. What do you have?
I have the Daily Guide and also the Finder.
All right. Let's quickly make tracks. The Daily Graphic this morning says, persistent partisan election of MMDCEs. There are those who have said that if we want development, it starts from that end, the grassroots. And that is where we should be sending our finest brains. Well, that is Dr. Valentin Mensah to government. Ghana ranked 7th in UN peacekeeping operations. There's also by-election beckons. NPP, NDC invade Asin North. First it was Kumeu. Now it's Asin North. Interestingly, Kumeu was won by the NPP. It has been retained by the NPP. Asin North was won by the NDC. Can the NDC retain Asin North? That's the question. Let the flow be free. And whenever I see stories on this, I definitely get into them because of the number of taxes that we've imposed on sanitary pads for women and girls. So association advocates end to period poverty. I'll be getting into that story. But let's start from the start. Even before Parliament declares the Asin North seat vacant, the two main political parties have turned their attention to the Central Regional constituency for another hot contest to prove a point. While the ruling New Patriotic Party would like to use a win in the constituency to back the possibility of its claim to break the 8, the biggest opposition, NDC, that is the National Democratic Congress, would also stake a claim that it has an upper hand over the seat it controlled, and that the party was ready to battle over the reins of the country come 2024. The NPP, after a victory in the Kumeu by-election on May 23 this year in the Ashanti region, its stronghold, is of the belief that it could win the Asin North seat if a by-election is declared. But the NDC, which won the seat with James Jachikwason in 2020, is bent on retaining that seat. So that is the latest from there. I think all the others are matters bordering on Jachikwason and how the cookie has crumbled. But just to give you a bit of a historical antecedent, the NPP MP, so it's been checkered between, in Asin North, between the NDC and the NPP. It was created in 2012, and then Asin Central constituency was split into two as Asin North and Asin Central. It was held by the NDC in 2012, taken by the NPP in 2016, and won again by the NDC in 2020. That's what the trajectory has been. Mr. Kwason, of course, capitalized on some happenings within the constituency to secure his slot. Any quick thoughts on Asin North, how things have turned out, citizenship, identity, the story of James Jachikwason, and now this impending by-election, though it's not yet been declared by the Electoral Commission?
Yeah, it's interesting how this thing panned out from the day one that Jachikwason won the election. There were injunctions, there were back and forth on the courts and all that. It was also because the numbers were close, and so eyes were on particular seats that people think they can easily overturn and work around with. You remember that in parts of the constituencies, some issues had to happen, gun shot, people killed, and seats taken over. Those issues are still there. It's interesting that the NPP, as a party in government, is really not thinking about how to turn around the woes of this country and make things better, but just interested in taking people out of parliament and making sure that they get some of these seats back. The issue of Kumewu is a classical example, even though a strong and then a strong hope for the NPP. Look at what happened during the by-election. Roads were constructed overnight, monies were doled out to Jimmy Rice, who were big giving in cabs and all those things that happened. It was a nice one. It was so interesting that people at this level of governance could be going to that extent to give out cheap things to be able to get votes and get seats in parliament. Yes, of course, the NDC went into the Kumewu election, not necessarily because we thought we were going to win, but we were going to make a statement. We did make that statement. We were able to increase our votes almost 1,500 numbers, and they had just about 328 thereabout or so. So for us, we want to make a statement to see that the misrule that we are suffering in this country is enough for the NPP to sit up and make sure that things are put right. The president we just heard recently talking about a difficult decision for them to go to the IMF. For me, those are some of the things they should be thinking about. How our tariffs are going to be increased every quarter now and then, and the suffering is going to bring on us and all those other things. Not necessarily putting all the arsenals together to make sure that they overturn whatever is happening in Asin North. I think it's laughable, but I'm sure that with the kind of vote Jachikwason got, I'm sure that Jachikwason got, I'm sure that we'll represent him as a candidate for the Asin North constituency and make sure he wins and wins very loudly so that we put the NPP to.
I mean, there have been legal questions about that situation, his coming for a second, term, if you like. I mean, going back for the seat that he had won in the first place, which the court declared that he had won unfairly on the basis of his nationality or citizenship and all of that. But if you look at the gap, it was just about 3,000. In fact, Mrs. Mensah, who was representing the NPP, was in pole position. She was the incumbent, but she lost by about 3,000 votes. It's close. 17,000 plus and 14,000 plus is still very close. It's still anybody's game. Do you think this would be a verdict on the NDC or the NPP? In fact, whichever party wins, if the NPP takes the Asin North seat, it means their majority in parliament would have been enhanced. If you lose it, your party's minority stance would be even further eroded. And it could also point to many things politically. If the NPP wins, it could mean that people still favor the party ahead of 2024. I mean, that's the game that is being played. And if the NDC wins, the rhetoric would be that people want change.
Yeah, of course, those are the dynamics, the other ones that people may be considering. Those are the different dynamics and the dimensions we'll be looking at. But for me, at the end of the day, I believe that as a people, the most important thing for us as Ghanaians is to make sure that our lives are made better by the day. And so even though, yes, those are the political gimmicks we'll all be playing, I expect that the NPP should look more into what they do to make our life better. As for the seat, I'm sure we're going to win. Close as it may, you saw the video that was held.
You're sure based on what, though?
No, on the personality of Jachikwesi himself and the party.
But it's not the official stance of your party that you're going with.
It is, unless something else happens. Of course, those other issues about the use of the courts against the party and the individual Jachikwesi.
I mean, I have heard rhetoric, talk, even with higher members of your party, that we likely would go with him. But is it official?
Yeah, I heard our party leadership speak about it just yesterday, that the official position of the party is that we're going to represent Jachikwesi to be our next parliamentary candidate.
Okay.
And of course, those other issues that may come up, as and when they come, we'll cross the bridge when we get to it. So I'm sure for now it is Jachikwesi who is our candidate. All right. Going to make sure that we go through that process.
So for now, Jachikwesi is on a comfortable lead. In the middle spread, well, not the middle spread, pages 10 and 39. Ghana ranked 7th in UN peacekeeping operations, and the United Nations has ranked Ghana 7th out of the 122 contributing countries in peacekeeping as of March this year. The total number of peacekeepers deployed globally by the UN as of March this year was 76,712, comprising 70,257 males and 6,455 females. Now, out of this number of 6,455 women deployed, Ghana had 429 of them. This makes Ghana the 4th highest in the world and 2nd in Africa on women deployment. In all, Ghana has so far deployed a total of 2,762 peacekeepers to various parts of the world. So at least we are holding the flag
of Ghana
high. I mean, it's always been like this.
Yeah,
We've always been at the forefront of these. But just 2 quick stories on page 16, and then we can wrap with the daily graphic. Let the flow be free. Association advocates end to period poverty, and that is the Lady Pharmacists Association of Ghana has called for an end to period poverty. I've spoken to you about sanitary pads for children. And this was on the back of the world marking Menstrual Hygiene Day last Sunday. Then persist in partisan election of MMDCEs. Dr. Mensah to government. He's asking, the government has been asked to continue the processes towards the review of Article 2431 of the 1992 Constitution for the election of municipal and district chief executives on the ticket of political parties. Quick reactions to these 2 stories.
Yeah, so of course I must commend one of my constituents, Nunana Egbeton here, for also taking up the responsibility to make sure that she's able to get enough sanitary pads for girls in our constituency. And I must give her a thumbs up for a good work she's doing. I'll be supporting her in whatever role she needs to do to make sure that this happens. And so I'm happy the lady pharmacist...
And I'm happy, just to interject, I'm happy you're saying that because some girls at some points in the month will not even be in school. About a week every month away from school and all of that. We're not being fair to them. So whatever can be done to assist them, if you can support, that would be great.
We will. So that's what I'm saying, that especially the rural ones, some very few privileged ones, because their parents are well-to-do, they are able to supply some of these needs, but very poor, prone ones are not able to put themselves together. And so we'd all have to give them support. Like the male gender, we should know that we are free for every day running and going healthy and making things work for us. But they, like you said, over a whole week, they may not have to go to school and they can do a lot of things. And so I'm sure it's our responsibility to make sure that we help them also stay on course. Of course, so kudos to everybody who is contributing to this particular gesture. Yeah.
All right, and on the election of MMDCs?
Yeah.
Very quick thoughts.
Yeah, it's always been a back and forth on whether to make it partisan or non-partisan.
What do you think?
I always believe that the way we have it now, where the ruling government appoints people who are directly responsible and report to them directly, is better than having somebody on a partisan level and maybe seen to be working against the government of the day, depending on how they want things to go. It's just like in Parliament, you may always, or you usually will see that the opposition may want to poo-poo anything government wants to do. And so for me, I am not sure we've gotten to that level where we can trust that our people will be responsible enough to carry on the banner of governance at the local level from the other side. I think that would have to grow a little more, because it looks like an NPP government having an NDC DCE in Salton, and once they want to...
You think that won't work?
No, it may work. I am not that pessimistic, but I'm only saying that I feel that the level we've gotten to now, we are not yet there.
You are not there yet?
Yeah,
okay.
I think that gradually we'll have to get there, though.
Okay.
Where it will not be a winner takes it all. Somebody will also be playing a role, and another play another role, so that in the issues of this nature, you get your best foot forward, not necessarily because the person is a party person. You have to put in there, even if they cannot perform the best way you want them to. And so I think that we'll have to gradually get there.
A quick one before you get into the Daily Guide newspaper. Solomon King, you're catching some fans from him. He says, good morning. Good to see you hosting my incoming Member of Parliament for Salton. That man brought freedom, peace and unity to Salton for the betterment of the people. And he says you have credibility and all of that. He goes on and on. And he says Gamesu. I don't know whether...
Gamesu.
Oh, okay. Gamesu.
Gamesu, not to try... That was our catch line, yes.
Oh, okay. I didn't quite get what he was trying to, because it was separate and all of that.
Yeah.
But anyway, those are the thoughts coming through. There are other thoughts that I may be looking at. The Daily Guide newspaper now.
Going to IMF painful Akufo-Addo. That's what the president is saying. I don't know whether it's really painful because...
But he did say that in recent times.
Yeah, he's saying it, and I don't know how painful it is because prior to about a week or even 2 days to go into IMF, we saw all the rhetorics from government appointees saying that they won't go to IMF, we are a proud nation, we won't demean ourselves.
But that's precisely why he says it was painful to go there.
So what are the options? The other way, why did we not go the way we need to go? Why do we go sharing the COVID-19 funds as if it was clearly being given to people and parliamentary candidates were giving 3,000, 30,000, 300,000, and all those other things.
The IMF, the World Bank, they've called for some responsibility on that. I mean, there have been releases on that, on spending and all of that.
You see, so for me, it is the prudence we needed to apply to our resources and make sure things work properly, which we didn't do. That is sending us. I'm surprisingly, up to now, Akufo-Addo is not interested in cutting down the size of his government. I don't know what really is there that he won't cut it off. And he's adding every day. The presidential staffers every year increases. And I wonder what they are getting out of these things that they don't want to touch down. It's just job for the boys, and we are going on and on and on and crying wolf. We could do a lot of things by ourselves. Why are we waiting for IMF to come and tell us, don't do this, increase this tax, do that? And of course, we can't tax ourselves out of poverty. We cannot. And so if you think that IMF is bringing us conditionalities and we only have to increase our tariffs, we have to tax people the more and do this and do that and do that, we could do a lot of things ourselves by cutting down the size of our government, number one. It gives us a lot of space. And that we discourage wastage in the system.
Right.
But every day we see some of these things happening. And I was surprised to hear the Vice President again yesterday or so, Sunday, talking about the need to provide laptops to secondary school kids.
That has also become a topical issue for discussion.
Yes, it's interesting. Now that we are in a hole, people want to dig them more. I wonder what they wish to get the money and the other things for to provide these things. Basic schools are there. Textbooks have not been provided. The secondary schools have their textbooks and now want to graduate from the physical textbook again and give them laptops with content on it. I wonder exactly where we are driving to. It looks like the driver is drunk on the seat. And he's just driving the car anyway. And we are in danger of getting an accident, and all of us, God forbid, we go into the ditch. I think that we should come back and make sure that things work out better. It looks like we have lost a sense of direction and responsibility as a country, and we are just going anywhere and anyhow.
All right. Let's get into some other stories.
Yeah, JUSA calls for strike. It's refreshing because Monday I was billed to be, was it Monday or Friday? Yes, I was billed to be in the court to do some work, but because of the strike I couldn't do. And a lot of people, they said we shouldn't call them litigants, we should call them court users. Court users were not able to use the courts. And it's refreshing to hear that because they are going to go into negotiations, government has asked them to call off the strike while they go into the negotiation. And I'm sure today when we go to the courts, they will be there to receive and to work with us. And so that's refreshing. I just hope that the 2 weeks ultimatum they've given, government will not renege on his responsibility as usual, like they are doing to the bond holders, not giving them their tickets and all that, and they are going back to start the picketing, I hear, on Thursday and Friday. And so I just pray and hope that things are settled for them to go back and then work for us.
All right. Let's get ready to wind on this conversation. But Sadat Ibrahim, you say you're watching us live on TV and Facebook, and you're saying there's a bit of a concern with the sound. I do not know whether the concern is on the live stream on social media, but maybe you're saying that you're watching from both ends. It's not going at the same pace. One will definitely be delayed. So if that's what you're referencing, then that's the answer to you. Let's look at is it the Find the newspaper? You have your next paper. Let's just look at the quick
minority
headlines.
no vote on Tokonu immaterial Joais. It's about the vote for the Chief Justice nominee, Gertrude Tokonu, and a minority says that they would need the judgment, the ruling on Jachi Kwesi, before they can vote yes or no. And so if that doesn't happen at the committee level, I'm sure they will take it to the plenary, and then they will call for a vote, whether a voice vote or a secret.
I mean, the Jawais had actually said that it's immaterial, like you're reading, that it could either be a consensual decision or by majority, and that the NPP, which has the majority on that committee, is going to go ahead with this. Well, it would then go to the plenary. I mean, from that stage, it would go to the plenary, and then there would have to be a vote because there wasn't consensus on the matter. So, I guess.
No, but I think that some of these things should not be entertained. This is going to be the Chief Justice for Ghana, and for crying out loud, let's all be seen to be one pushing some of these people forward, so that their judgment may not be seen to be a political judgment, like they themselves will come out to say. I feel that we should carry ourselves along. It should not always be they against us kind of thing. And so it's normal that once you give a judgment, you bring out the written judgment for people to peruse. If there are other course of action that people may want to take out of this, they feel free to do. But once you give an oral judgment or a verbal one and then you don't follow up, then people are tied up and they can't do other things. And so for some people, that's what they are crying for, that let's be fair as a people to the system, to everybody, so that people will not feel that their hands have been tied behind them, and then someone else is slapping them.
Our time, ideally said our hands have been tied. Our time has been tied behind us.
Tinubu has been sworn in, and then the former president is going home, and he says that it's easier for him to go and manage his cattle and sheep in the village than to manage Nigerians. That's a low blow.
That's an interesting bit. And Bola Tinubu also has his work cut out for him in terms of insurgency, in terms of corruption, in terms of the economy, in terms of fuel prices. He's going to take away the subsidy and all of that. But any quick, just read the headlines for us from the Find the Newspaper.
IMF deal sets ECG up for another concession. That's going to be another one for a lawsuit hits Petroleum Hub project and best positioning to lead NPP to break the 8 Dr. Koto. Your men have been effective, Dagmar Overlord tells IGP. And then shareholders commend Access Bank performance at the 15th AGM. Those are the headlines in the Finder newspaper.
From the Economy Times, trade surplus improves, records $1.6 billion. Interest rates remain unchanged. And then the graphic business, local banks can consider mergers. Experts are saying, this is a discussion we've had on the show. 160,000 SMEs capacity enhanced at the graphic business Access Bank SME Clinic. But the story I'll leave you with, T-bills, threat to debt restructuring efforts. Experts sound alarm bells. And they've been saying that the reliance by government on the Treasury bill market to raise short-term money to finance its operations could defeat the purpose of the debt restructuring program. You know, we've been shut out from the external market, borrowing market, but if we keep relying on T-bills, it could pose danger in the near future. That is what experts are saying. Max, we're grateful you've taken the time to join us this morning. So he is parliamentary candidate-elect for the NDC in Salton constituency, and he is hoping to maintain that constituency come election day. We wish you the best.
Thank you so much.
And right before we get into sports, always this segment brought to you by Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic. They're offering free prostate screening, free fertility screening as well. All you need to do is locate them here in Accra, Spintex opposite the Shell signboard. Kumasi Kronomabwe here, behind the Angel Educational Complex. There's Takrady Anaji Estate, there's Tema Community 22, Techiman Hanswa, and Esiama Nzema. You can reach them on 0244 867 068 or 0274 234 321. Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic, the end to chronic disease, but only the start of sports. Up next.
The 2022-2023 Ghana Premier League title is finally beyond the reach of Kumasi Asante Kotoko. The Porcupine Warriors' quest to defend the title has come to an end following their 1-1 draw against Kerala United. Kerala, however, they have boosted their chances of surviving and maintaining their status as a Ghana Premier League team for next season, as they've now moved outside the relegation zone, though they are still within that area. We're hearing from a former Kumasi Asante Kotoko midfielder who's been speaking about the future of Nanayo Amponsa. What should the board do when it comes to his future? And then we'll also be talking about the Chelsea's decision to hire Mauricio Pochettino as their new manager. But first, we start with Kumasi Asante Kotoko, who have drawn their match day 31 Ghana Premier League game against Kerala United. The Porcupine Warriors needed to win to boost their chances of still defending their title, despite placing fifth on the league log prior to that game against Kerala United. Kerala, however, they have boosted their chances of maintaining their status as a Premier League team after the 1-1 stalemate moved them just a little above the relegation zone.
Ebenezer Ukran would want to see a lot of the movement of the ball. It comes to the near side where Amonu swings it through. And no white shirts there to challenge for it. But it's still not giving up. It's a shot on target. Oh, that was close. And it's the first. Does, but can he get to the ball? He keeps his momentum. That's good enough for Kotoko. They're expecting the drive. It comes through Zeze. Again, a point blank save by Ganiyu and all. He turns it into his own net. Rashid, hard pressed.
Amazing play from the Porcupine Warriors. And look at the determination on the face of Ifege. Did very well, kept the ball alive. And when he won the tussle against Fatau, I mean, he's picking up that pass. It's a visionary pass. And Zeze couldn't hit it one time. Safu Taylor controlled it with a foot, but again.
And it is Kerala who are now playing from left to right. It's a long ball in by Ganiyu. Now it's Amonu, lays on the pass. A chance coming for Kerala. And there's white shirts that get the ball away. Miscommunication, but Safu fires. Be done. Owusu is free, goes past one, still struggling. He goes through, sets up the cross. Chance for Kerala. They are back in the game.
This is superb. Intelligent play. Lovely. Owusu Buachi, just look at the magic. Lovely skill, brilliant play, whips it across the face of goal. And guess who is getting at the end of it is Fatau, who smashed it against the Kotoko player and back into the root of the net. But what a skill from Buachi to set it up for Fatau. Smashed it against the goalkeeper and it's into the net, and Kerala back in the game. Kotoko.
Continuation by Justice Blake. The kick, and it's the last kick of the game as referee Dr. Imoro Osman brings the match to an end.
And bringing the match to an end also means that Kotoko's failure to win the Ghana Premier League title could lead to changes at the summit of the club. Well, the board had given Nanayo Amponsa a 3-year mandate to spearhead the administration of the Porcupine Warriors. In those 3 years, he's been able to win the Ghana Premier League once and failed to win it 2 times. And conversations are surrounding his future as the chief executive officer of the club. Former Asante Kotoko midfielder Yusuf Chipsa says that the board should assess the mandate that was given to Nanayo Amponsa before deciding on his future.
We are friends. Amponsa, now they say that's why I should. That's why I should rough.
Should they extend his mandate? Should Kotoko extend his mandate?
I think they have to assess him. I just don't want to sit and say yes or no. He's worked over 3 years now. The board should definitely ask for his report, let them assess him, and if he's done a good job, the job will say it. If he hasn't done a good job, it will say it. I just don't want to say extend it or don't extend it. If it should be extended, he should merit it. You understand? So
based on what you've witnessed from afar, do you think he's done a good job?
What have I witnessed?
You've witnessed that he's won the league title. Reports say the club is now financially sufficient. They don't need to go to the overlord of the club and be asking for money and all that.
if you were the owner of Kotoko and you hire someone who is able to come in and bring money to run the club and don't come to you to ask for money, the person wins a league title for you within 3 years, would you rate that as a success and want him to continue or not?
Yes, that should be a success, because in the past, Kotoko as a club has been financed by either the executive chairman or we've not been able to generate internal funds from the club.
Yeah.
So if what you are saying is the fact that he's been able to do that, he's won the league, he's done that, why not? It's a success. But like I said, let the board assess him. When they assess him and they establish the fact that he's done that, then why not? He should continue. Continuity is good for everyone. I mean, like I told you, 2006 World Cup group had been in touch over a certain number of years.
Yeah.
When we went to the Olympic Games, we've been in touch over a certain number of years. And look at the under-20s who won the World Cup. It was as a result of Ben Kofi's 5-year development plan put in place. Look at Senegal today. They are bossing Africa. They didn't start yesterday. It took them 15 good years. If you go back and do research, 15 good years, the results are showing now. So continuity is good if it is done right. Let them assess him. They should assess. People are talking a lot. Everybody is saying, you know, there are fractions.
Yeah.
Those who like you will say good things about you. Those who don't like you will say bad, negative things about you. We can't wait. But the reality is there. Whatever Nana Aponsa has done over the 3 years, the records are there. So the board should assess him. And if he's done a good job, let him continue. If he hasn't done a good job and you think somebody else can do a good job, let them take their decision.
Later today at the Accra Sports Stadium, 2 teams in the Bono and Ahafo region will be seeking to gain qualification to participate in the next Ghana Premier League campaign. These teams, Tano Bafuakwa and Techiman 11 Wonders, will be squaring off in the Division 1 League playoff. My colleague Anas Sabet has been engaging some fans in Techiman who are very confident that 11 Wonders will return to the top flight. There's more in the following report.
Techiman 11 Wonders and Sunyani-based Tanobofakwa will clash in the championship playoff for a spot in the 2023-2024 Bet Power Premier League. Whilst the Techiman-based side who suffered relegation in the 2020-2021 season are hoping for a return to the top flight, Tanobofakwa, on the other hand, has been absent from the Premier League since the 2006-2007 Premier League campaign when they faced relegation after finishing 14th in the league. Less than 24 hours to this crucial encounter, we've been engaging some football fans in the Techiman municipality to gauge their expectations. Most of these fans are hopeful that the Techiman-based side will make it to the Premier League next season.
Wonders special 1-0.
11 Wonders would win by 1-0. I'm saying so because Usinlata sent Wonders to relegation and moved to Bofuakwata. And if you compare this zone to that of Bofu, this zone is much more difficult. Bofuakwata can't stand Wonders in terms of performance.
Wonders.
11 Wonders will win by 3-0. If you like, mark it on the wall. I strongly have that belief. Wonders will win by 2-0, inshallah. 11 Wonders have a strong team. Whilst most of these fans are throwing their weight behind 11 Wonders, Malam Hudu, an ardent fan for Techiman City, is predicting a 2-1 victory in favor of the Sunyani-based side Tanobofakwa. I'm very sure that Bofakwa Tano will beat 11 Wonders by 2-1. He says Bofakwa Tano's long stay outside the top flight league is a motivation for their qualification.
Because Bafo, we check
If you consider the analysis made, it's been 15 years since Vocational featured in the Premier League, and there hasn't been a Premier League team in Sunyani since. Techiman, on the other hand, had City and Wonders, and each time Wonders features, they struggle to beat the relegation zone. So Vocational will beat them this time around by 2-1.
Let's talk Black Stars now. And defender Tariff says that he and his colleagues will do well to compete in the next edition of the African Cup of Nations and possibly win it. According to him, the team gave their all during the FIFA World Cup, but unfortunately, it did not go well for Otto Addo and his boys. Now, he believes that with the quality available to Chris Hilton, a manager he describes as one of the humble people when it comes to football, he's very confident that they've got what it takes to be able to compete and win. He spoke to my colleague, Gary Alsmate.
To be honest, it's a thing where we always try our best. We work as hard as possible and we go on the pitch to win. Like we wasn't able to do that in this occasion, but for sure in the future we're working hard. We believe in ourselves and we have to keep going through the challenges, because in football it's never straightforward, or there's always ups and downs, and you have to be able to ride it, and you have to have faith in yourself and faith in the team, and that's definitely something that we have. So yeah.
Look, Ghanaians have not seen a trophy in 40 years-ish. How confident are you in the ability of this team to win something finally for the country?
So football is a very difficult game. It's hard that you're playing against players that are top world-class players at the highest level, but we believe in ourselves. You have to. And in football, you don't go into any game thinking that you're going to lose. We always have the feeling that you're going to win. You always have the feeling that if you work hard and you prepare right, then you get the right result. So we don't really worry about what we have to, the external factors. If we concentrate and we do what is right for us, like I said, take each game as it comes, and we're confident. We're confident.
And the full interview will be coming soon on this channel. Let's do athletics now. And over the weekend, there was athletics championship in Ashanti region. It's a super zonal. And my colleague, Stephen Zando, was there and comes through with this report.
The Super Zonas Athletics competition was organized by the Ghana Education Service after a break since 2019. The 4-year break was due to factors including the outbreak of COVID-19. 39 senior high schools in the Ashanti region competed in both the boys and girls divisions of the track and field event from Thursday, May 25 to Friday, May 26, 2023. The competition attracted a large spectatorship, including students and lovers of athletics who thronged the stadium to enjoy the battle of supremacy. The fans generated an ambience at the stadium that confirmed Ghanaians' love for athletics. In the end, the oldest senior high school in Ashanti region, Osei Senior High, conquered the boys' event, accumulating 122 points to win gold. This achievement is monumental and significant for Okes because they last won in 1992. It's been 31 years the school won Suzo, and captain and sports prefect of Ahinema, Nuhu Adams, explained how they were able to fulfill their promise of clinching the trophy.
We made our mind that we are going to make history today. We decided to collect the trophy today. We promised our headmaster and some of the old students and our staffs, a lot of people, that we are going to make it. So we just make it, and we knew we are going to do it. So we are on point. Okay, so we are always a soldiers ready for any war. So this trophy don't deserve anyone. It deserves to Okes, Osei Senior High School. So we are very grateful.
Opoguari Senior High School came second in the boys category with 118 points, missing out by just 4 points, while TI Ahmadiyya Senior High Kumasi picked bronze with 102 points. For the girls division, St. Louis Senior High School made history by winning the Super Zonas for the first time with 196 points.
The feeling was so good because it was the school first time taking the Super Zonas, so everyone was excited about it. It's all about training. We trained hard for it.
How difficult was it?
Everything was too smooth for us, but we trained hard. Everything is about training.
Kumasi Anglican came second with 134 points, and T.I. Amas Kumasi picked the third spot with 122 points. Some schools may not have won the overall race. Some individual athletes distinguished themselves with personal records. Benjamin Nsiabuachi of CAS, who is a national athlete, set a new record in the 200 meters race with a time of 20.83 seconds after beating Shadrach Adujanfi's record in the region set in 2012. Florence Ajiman of Supercars emerged the best track athlete in the girls category after setting a new record in 200 meters with a time of 23.71 seconds, beating Dorwin Safueje's record of 23.97 seconds set for St. Monica's in 2012. Florence also set another record in 400 meters in a time of 53.43 seconds when she erased Rafiatu Nihun's record set in 2017 for Kumasi girls. Florence told Love Sports she wants to take her craft a notch higher and compete on the international level for Ghana.
Louis for ABT Academy say group ne the end yeah for financial more by Obia trying the best Obia to me say now from Obia my for say it's all about hard working pay me one say yanko ma komenim ya me be ma komenim na waboa me ama ma ti komenim na ensi wa so ye go so ato ahye Ghana animunyam.
Stephen Zando for Love Sports.
This is our wrap-up sports here on the AM show with me, Muftau Nabila Abda. You can head on to myjoyonline.com and read some more sports stories. And also later today, we'll be bringing you some excerpts of our interview with Tariff Lamte. Do continue as we bring that exclusive conversation to you here on this channel. We appreciate your company.
Well, welcome into the studio once more. We get into our big stories. There is some breaking news about an accident that has happened. We'll be bringing you some details on that. Gory accident involving a fuel tanker and a bus. Unfortunately, some lives have been lost. Stay with us here on the AM show. We'll be bringing you the latest scoop on that. But today we delve into issues surrounding the governing New Patriotic Party's flag bearership race. And so far, we know that 5 people have picked their forms to contest the elections. They include Vice President Dr. Mahamudu Bawumia, former Energy Minister Boakye Jako, former General Secretary of the party Kwabena Ejapong, former Member of Parliament for Mampong Francis Adainimo, and the person you just heard speaking, former Agriculture Minister Dr. Efri Akoto. Now, we're going to throw the spotlight on these 5 individuals, look at what they have done in the past, what they are doing now, and what they bring to the table, the NPP table first of all, and then to the national table. Well, joining us for these conversations, Dr. Asa Sumaila Mohammed. He is Senior Lecturer, CK Tedham University of Technology and Applied Sciences. We also have Professor Kwabena Safo Kantanka. He is also a Senior Lecturer at the University of Cape Coast. Prof, Doc, a very good morning to you. Thank you for joining the conversation.
Good morning, my brother.
Good morning, Benjamin.
Great. Just hold for me, gentlemen. Hold for me. We have a breaking story that we need to get into. And now we'll be crossing over to get the scoop on, unfortunately, that dastardly accident that has taken place. We'll be crossing over to our correspondent to give us further details on this matter. Hello, good morning. So we can hear some sound bites from the scene. We'll be bringing you some pictures of what exactly has transpired and go on the ground. Unfortunate, really unfortunate scenes we're seeing there. Seth Kofi Ajay is our man on the ground. Seth, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you well.
Great. Tell us, on which stretch exactly did this happen? And narrate to us what exactly transpired leading to all these casualties.
The accident happened at Otreko Junction, where the river is. When coming from Abibata, you can see there's a big river on that road, on that side. Akra Highway, and that place has been marked as one of the accident-prone areas. And as I'm speaking to you now, there's a fatal accident between you come back from Liberia to Budumbram, which is Budumbram is a Liberia community. So they load from Liberia to Budumbram, and there's a petrol tanker with label Goodness Energy from Accra direction to Kakrade. And unfortunately, they had head-on collision on the bridge. So as I'm speaking to now, about 16 people, 16 passengers have been confirmed dead, very serious. And as Winneba Municipal Fire Service Commander, DO2 Kwasi is here, and other speaking, the road has been blocked. The Cape Coast Highway has been blocked for the past 3 hours. Commander, can you tell us what exactly happened?
Okay, so we had a distress call at around 05:14 hours, reporting an accident at this very location, Igomwa Otreko. And so we quickly arrived at the scene, and we realized that the accident is a very serious accident, which had involved a Yukon bus, which was from Abidjan to Liberia camp. And so we also established that the accident involved a tanker, which is carrying a full capacity tank of petrol. So quickly had to get to work together with our police and ambulance, and we realized that a lot of lives were at stake. In fact, people had been dismembered. They have been torn into pieces, if I may say. So we had to rescue the rescuable lives first, which we have done. We have sent them to trauma and specialist hospital. At the moment, as I speak, the trauma emergency unit is full. So we sent the rest to the municipal hospital. And so we were able to rescue some lifeless bodies as well. Because I'm saying rescue because we are not the ones to confirm them dead. They have been dismembered, but you cannot say they are dead until the doctor confirms so. And so those ones were also, as I speak, 15, because we were, initially they were 15, but we have just realized that the driver's mate of the tanker is still stabbed. In fact, he has been mashed. So, as we do always, we are going to effect extrication. We are going to capture part of the vehicle so that we have access to the body to be able to retrieve the body. And so the accident is not a good scene at all. And looking at the fact that a lot of lives are involved, and for over 3 hours now, there hasn't been any vehicle movement on this road. It's not a pleasant scene at all.
Commander, this place has been marked at the whole area. What are you telling?
I am sure for this place being an accident-prone area is because of how the road is. You know, it's a narrow curve, and so people try to do overtaking here a lot. I don't know. I don't believe in overtaking, but I believe in attitudinal change. If we say it's an accident-prone area, then every car that gets here to get an accident. But if you conduct yourself well on the road, if you drive with care, there have been people who pass here all the time, but they don't get accident. Do they? They don't. And so it's about the conduct of the drivers. If you are driving tired, you have to park and rest. If you are overspeeding, you have to advise yourself and all that. It's about attitude. I don't believe in superstition, but I believe in attitudinous. It's an appalling situation.
What are you doing now? You think so the road has not been open?
Yes. So we have been able to tow the return bus to a place of safety, and currently we are receiving the lifeless body of the driver's mate, after which we will tow the tanker to a place of safety as well, so that we'll be able to open the traffic. As you can see, my men are also clearing the heavy debris, including food items and all that, including body parts. We are clearing them off from the road to be able to ensure that the traffic situation flows. So that's what we are doing now.
Kwajo, if you have any questions. Hello, Kwajo.
I had just wanted to find out what had really caused this accident, whether there was any idea which one of the drivers or what exactly had resulted in this head-on collision. Was one trying to overtake the other? What exactly happened?
Okay, so according to eyewitness who was actually following the U-turn bus from Takrady, he said that the driver of the U-turn bus kept on veering off his lane occasionally, many a time. So he was the one who was honking at him, as we say, horning at him, to caution him most of the time. But unfortunately, he was stopped by checkpoint, police checkpoint, so he lost track of the driver, which goes without saying that the driver was suspected to be sleeping. And so, according to another eyewitness at the scene of the accident, the tanker driver realized that the return driver had veered from his lane. So the tanker driver wanted to save the situation. So he rather came into the lane of the return, because at the time the return driver had come into his lane. And so this didn't save the situation, since the two cars are all bulky and big on the road. So the impact was hit at the passenger side of the return and the passenger side of the tanker as well. So this is a situation where we got the tanker driver much, and as we are speaking now, we are currently retrieving his lifeless body. It will be matched anyway. And the other passengers on the passenger side of the U-turn were also dismembered. In fact, they were cut into pieces. Some got their head chopped up, some got their head open, and a whole lot. It's been a nasty scene this morning, but like we do always, the Ghana National Fire Service, we are up and doing, so we've come to the remedy of the situation, and so very soon traffic flow will be open.
All right, just to wrap up the conversation very quickly, have any of them been conveyed to hospital, any hospital?
Yes, I said earlier on that we were able to rescue 40 people.
Okay, so those were part of...
Who were at the time alive, conscious, and we sent them to trauma and specialist hospitals.
Right.
I said also earlier that because of this trauma and specialist hospitals, emergency unit is full. And so some of them were also transported to municipal hospital in Reading. And the lifeless bodies that we retrieved are 16. So as you people say, 16 have died and 40 people have been taken to hospital.
Right.
Yeah.
Seth Kofi Ajay, we're so grateful that you brought us the scoop from the ground. He's our reporter with Adom FM, and gory scenes that we just saw on the Gumwa Atreko junction there, where this Yutong bus, supposedly from Abidjan heading into the Liberian camp, collided head-on collision with a petrol tanker headed for Takrady. I mean, full capacity, fully loaded. And the story is that the driver of the Yutong bus appeared to be either tired or maybe even drunk. And someone had spotted him earlier veering this way and that. And unfortunately, this is what it has resulted in. Very gory scenes. Some 40 people in the Yutong bus whisked away to hospital, but 16 people confirmed dead, and it is indeed morbid, really gory, because some of these people have been dismembered. Really, really sad situation. And you heard the fire officers speaking there that some say that area is accident prone, but others also who drive with caution always use that stretch without any casualties, and that requires some attitudinal change. And those are the scenes you see there from Gumwa Atreko, and really heart-rending. But anyway, even as we get into the conversation with our guests, Prof and Doc, this Gumwa Atreko incident that is just, I mean, we had to break this conversation we're going to have to bring in this one. I would like your reflections on it, because we've been trying over the years to reduce the carnage on our roads. Here we are this morning, woke up to such dastardly news. Around 5:14 a.m., the report came, and by the time the officers got there, 16 of our brothers and sisters had already met their maker. Any quick reactions before we get into the substantive matter? I'll start with you, Prof.
Thank you very much, Benjamin, and good morning. An extremely sad situation. We've been talking about road accidents from time that we cannot even remember, time immemorial. I remember junior secondary school, senior secondary school, we were writing essays about causes of road accidents. So we know all the causes, but I think it's a matter of attitude, both on the part of drivers, road users, and also on the part of government officials, those authorities, those who are supposed to make laws work. The issues are many, but I'll mention two of them right now, listening to the reporter. You see, one major problem with our roads is engineering works. Our roads don't have shoulders. And sometimes where you have shoulders, you've had people even selling coconuts. People put firewood on the shoulders of the road. So I imagine that if where the accident occurred, there was a bigger shoulder, the tanker driver could have moved towards the shoulder, even though the Yutong bars had a little bit veered off his road. So because there was no shoulder, the tanker driver attempted to move onto the offside lane. That is the opposite lane. And at that time, the Yutong driver had also gone back to his lane. That is a bigger issue. And is it Road Safety Authority? They must look at this. I drive very often on this road, Cape Coast to Accra. And even this week, I'm likely to be in Accra. You drive and you realize that people have put coconuts, selling coconuts on the shoulders of the road. So in case of an emergency, there's nowhere to pass. That is a bigger issue. And meanwhile, we have road safety authority officials driving on these roads all the time. You have the police, MTTD officials driving on the road, standing on, even sometimes very close to areas where the shoulders have been blocked. It is a major issue. And you see, at around 5:30 a.m., visibility is blurred, especially around this time that is raining. And so I guess that visibility was a problem. We don't have lights on our roads. Sometimes you drive to places and you can hardly see within, say, 100 meters or 50 meters away. So what it also means that as a driver, you must slow down.
Right.
And sometimes vehicles parked on the roads, and the issues are so many. You keep rehashing them, but we don't see any action. We don't see anything happen. And they keep happening on our roads. Road accidents are even more dangerous, and they've claimed more lives within a year than even COVID.
It is.
Attitude towards COVID. It was a very serious one. Everybody was afraid. What about road accidents? So I think that it is high time we sat down and made the laws work.
Right.
The fight against road accidents has also been so much focus on the driver. It's too much driver focused, rather than also considering road construction, road engineering, and even on the road user, the pedestrians, if you like. So sometimes I think that there's so much focus on the driver is also problematic. We have to look at other ways of preventing road accidents.
Right. Interesting, very interesting points that you've made. I've given you a bite. Very briefly, I mean, I don't want us spending too much time on this. We'll have sufficient time to get into that. But Dr. Amache Boateng and Dr. Mohammed, do you have any quick takes on this? Let me also welcome aboard Dr. Kwesi Amache Boateng. He's a political scientist at the Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology. Dr. Amache Boateng, let me start with you. Any quick take reaction to this issue? Hello, Doc.
Yes. Let me say thank you for this opportunity and to also say good morning to our viewers. Actually, my quick reaction is on the issue of this attitudinal change. I've always had a problem when we go in for that, because human beings don't necessarily change their own ways that they think they are satisfied and are comfortable with. We need institutional measures to get them to change. When you go to other areas where the roads are narrow, just like Ghana, drivers are not allowed to overspeed. Period. You can't do that. You do that, you are accosted and made to pay a fine at times on the spot, or even if it is not on the spot, the right measures are put in place to ensure that whether you want it or not, you can't overdrive. That is in addition to what Prof has already spoken about, the challenges with the road, the nature of the road, the architectural work, the sizes, the shoulders. The shoulders you drive, and then farmers keep their wood, their firewood, at times cement blocks, sand meant for some construction. And like he said, our police are not aware that those areas too should be cleared for use by motorists. So that's my quick case. We need institutional measures to curb this overspeeding tendencies on the part of drivers. Period.
Dr. Mohammed, what's your take? Quick one. Hello, Dr. Mohammed.
Hello?
Yes, I can hear you now. Please go ahead.
You can hear? Okay. So my condolences to the bereaved family. I equally use that road regularly of recent times, and sometimes you can see some of these things that are happening that you can just predict that it will happen. So sometimes, as a friend says, most of the accidents are not accidents, they are incidences, meaning that the accident is something that you unexpected occurrences. But these are sometimes highly expected, and unfortunately, we keep on allowing them to happen and killing our innocent people. It's so unfortunate. I equally had such experience 2 years ago in the Chichiman area. I had a head-on collision with a pickup. And it was a similar incident where I did not have opportunity to veer. So as Prof said, he hit the nail on the head. I did not have any opportunity to veer off or to take off the other lane. So he came on, I had to just take the risk. And then we had a head-on. And then I condemned my car beyond recognition and beyond repairs. Fortunately, I survived. So these are things that we need to really look at and carefully identify that these are the key careful issues that in our road regulation and safety we put into place. Another issue that I think about is this night driving. In Europe, night drivers are given regular education. And any car or any company that wants to do night driving, your car is registered and the regulatory institutions are aware of you and constantly give training. Now, you can expect that he had left Liberia, probably, which part of Liberia? Probably early hours of yesterday. And he has arrived, now probably one driver for the whole of that journey. He will get tired. You can't cheat nature. And sleep will definitely catch on you. So I think we need to really look at that. And it is one of the things that, if you look at recently, there was another one that happened on the Kintampo side, not quite long, about 2 or 3 weeks ago. There was a similar coalition, and then more than 10 people died. Please, we can't keep on killing our own people this way, because sometimes it is not accident. It is something that we know will happen, and then we keep on allowing them to happen. It's unfortunate, and I think we need to step up on our regulatory measures.
Thank you so much, gentlemen, for your initial thoughts on this. As I have mentioned, right here on Joy News, we always bring you those breaking stories. We'll continue to bring you the scoop on what exactly has happened, and we pray that for those who have made it to hospital, none others will perish. And I think we should also re-echo this point that when a driver is driving recklessly and you notice it, whether it's out of tiredness or something, don't just sit there. Try and get their attention. I know it's not the simplest thing to do, but your life is at stake. And in this instance, we've lost 16 souls that we cannot bring back to life. May their souls rest in peace. But let's get into the bit about the NPP now. The New Patriotic Party. It is getting to the end of this year, into that primary to select a candidate, a flag bearer, to lead the party into election 2024. So far, 5 candidates have picked up forms. Today, tomorrow, I hear more are going to be picking up these forms. I'll start with you, Prof. On the back of those that we've seen who have picked up the forms, the Agric Minister, former Agric Minister, Dr. Owusu-Afriyie-Akoto, we have former Energy Minister, Boakye Jako, we have former General Secretary, a lot of the formers, former General Secretary of the party, Kwabena Japong, there's former Member of Parliament for Mampong, Francis Adainumo, and of course, there is also the current Vice President, Dr. Mahama Bawumia. This gentleman, this question goes to all of you gentlemen. Very brief thoughts. When you look at these happenings in the NPP and the numbers that are picked so far, what is your reading? Is this what you would have expected at this point in time? Would you have expected more? What can you say about the process thus far? I'll start with you, Prof. Very briefly on this so we can move on to other salient matters.
On the road accident. You see, one concept that we have in this country that is so wrong is about our description of speeding. We say overspeeding. Actually, overspeeding is not a standard English language term. If you go to Europe, if you go to England, they use speeding. So our concept alone of speeding tells you that, well, you can speed, but don't overspeed. And so it makes it even very difficult for drivers themselves to say that we are overspeeding. We are speeding, sorry. So I think that terminology also comes in. We should begin to change some of these terms so that we can begin to develop and understand when we say you are speeding.
Right.
I think that is very important.
Right.
Now, coming back to the NPP and the flag bearership race, I think that I am not surprised about the numbers. It could be more because, you see, it tells you that the party has a variety of choices to make. What it tells you is that the NPP is telling you that, okay, we have the men, as the usual term has always been. We have the men to choose from. And I think that is a very good thing for a political party. If at a point in time, you have a lot more people to choose from to lead your party, what it means is that grooming is good. You have to always, as a party, find ways and means of grooming people for potential takeover for the current leadership and what have you. If you don't do that, it gets to a stage where the party will begin to be in the hands of very few people, and when the need arises, it's difficult to make choices. So I think that is a very good thing for the NPP in terms of the numbers. But of course, I don't expect the number to get as high as we saw somewhere in 2007, 2008. And so that they can manage it. Of course, there are rules in place where they can trim down the numbers to say 5 before the final showdown for the election of a flag bearer or standard bearer of the party. So briefly, I think that is a positive development for the party.
Let me come to you, Dr. Mohammed. What is your reading of this, looking at the pool of people that have so far picked up the forms? Doc, you would have to unmute, please, before you speak.
Hello?
I can hear you. Please go ahead.
Yeah, so what I'm saying is that as much as I agree to Prof that competition is good, but over-competition can also have its own challenges. And then we saw that in 2007, in the same NPP, what happened, the possibility of the unfortunate development of money syndrome started or has its basis from such incidences of many people competing for same. Therefore, those who do not have what it takes may end up using other resources such as money to gain their way. And that's my challenge that I am having with the NPP, with the overgrowing number. I can imagine that by the close of this week or the nomination, we'll have more than 10. And I guess maybe the party have a strategy of trimming down.
I think a few months ago we were told that if it was beyond a certain number, they would have a system in place to sift off. So I think there's a mechanism in place.
Exactly. So that is what I would trust the NPP to do, and that if doing so, they must be very careful as well, because some of them really may have their grassroots, but may not have the blessing of those who will be making those choices. And at the end of the day, 2024 elections means numbers. And I think they need to be careful about how to trim down the number. But by and large, it is all part of the growth of the democracy. We're happy NDC one ended successfully. And therefore, NPP should be watching to also add on to the growth of democracy in Ghana by conducting a very good and peaceful primaries at the presidency level.
Dr. Abibata Boateng, your quick take on this one. Can you hear me, Doc?
Yes, I can hear you. I muted, and I guess you also had to mute me or something like that.
I can hear you now. Please go ahead.
Coming up in political party activity, actually, it's an indication of positive developments in the party. It's an indication of a vibrant democracy, vibrant political activities in the party. But then they also present challenges of their own, because in cases like this, I think the party will do well to be as transparent as possible with the rules that they go into work with to guide these electoral processes going forward. And I think that is crucial. They've got to get the contestants to review the rules and to really indicate that they are okay, they are ready to work with it, such that whatever it is, only one person is going to come out. Those who will be, who will fall by the roadside shouldn't feel aggrieved. Like Dr. Assar said, they go with their support base. And obviously, all of them have got some sort of constituency in the party. So to be able to keep the unity of the party at the end of the exercise, I think the first point of call should be the rules of the game. The contestants should be made to review them and to come to terms with the fact that these are the rules and to explicitly accept or come out with any issue they have. That is what I would want to see at this time.
Coming to you, Prof. So we know these 5 candidates, the team of formers, like I put it, former energy minister, former member of parliament, so many of them. We have the current vice president as well, who recently has put forth his position in terms of gunning for that slot. But when you look at these 5 gentlemen, what are their selling points? We know others are going to join. I mean, the likes of Alan Tremating, the likes of Kojo and Safwa Poku, energy analyst. He spoke to me yesterday. Others expected to join. Kennedy Japong, Asin Central Member of Parliament. But for those who have already picked up the forms, what are their merits, and if you like, demerits? What do they bring to the table, Prof? Looks like there is quite a delay once we get our guests to respond. Prof, if you've heard me, you may have to unmute and then make your point.
Hello?
Go ahead, Prof.
I'm having an unstable internet connection. Hello?
Prof, I can hear you. Please go ahead.
Actually, I have had an unstable internet connection, so I didn't hear most of the things you said.
Okay, so my simple point, the 5 who have picked up nomination forms so far, what do you see to be their merits and demerits? We have former Energy Minister Boachi Jako in there, former Agric Minister Dr. Usu Akoto-Efriye in there. We have a former Member of Parliament. We also have the current Vice President, among others in there, 5 of them. What do you see to be their merits and demerits?
Well, thank you very much. You see, in an election, in electing a standard bearer of a political party, the most important thing you need to consider is the ability of the person you are electing to win the general election. It shouldn't be so much about winning the primaries to lead the party, but more of winning the general election. But of course, because of course, what is the point in electing a candidate who cannot win your general election for you? So I think that is something that if you are discussing the strengths and weaknesses of those who have picked nomination forms, we have to consider. To what extent can you sell a candidate? And to what extent has even the candidate already sold himself? To what extent is the candidate known around the country? Have the parties or the members of the party done their own investigations about the sellability of the candidate going to be elected? And I think that if you put all of them together, you'll realize that some may have advantage over others. Today, when you walk around the country, there are some names that have become household names and what have you. There are some, when you mention somewhere, people may not even be able to recognize. And so these are some of the things that may militate against some of the candidates and at the same time help facilitate the winning of the black barrier-shaped primaries by some of the candidates. So it's a matter of balancing the equation. And I think that if you look at the names already mentioned, well, 5 of them, Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia is well known in the country because of his position as the vice president. He's toured all the country throughout. And of course, there is nowhere in this country, perhaps where you mention Dr. Bawumia, people will not be able to recognize. In the same way, maybe when you mention somebody like Alan, people will be able to recognize, yes, we know the name, but you have to ask yourself, maybe when you talk about Adanimo, how many people can recognize and how many people are going to be trooping in for him for the general election? If you mention Boachia Jakon, the former energy minister. And of course, all of us know what happened before he was removed from office. Is this going to pan out in the election? He has a very determined personality. But the question is, if you are going to sell him out there to the general public, what is it likely to be? And so this Kwabena Japan is there. You know, Kwabena Japan, a very talented man. He was the general secretary of the party. Something happened. For want of a better word, I'll say he was ousted from office. And then he's continued to be part of the party, doing his own things to support the party and all that. When it comes to the contest, is he going to be able to win the primaries and subsequently the general election? These are some of the questions that we should be asking. And of course, as I sit here, when I look at the issues I've mentioned, I can clearly say that for now, the 5 people who have filed nomination forms, if they were to contest today, it is obvious that you know who is likely to win the contest.
I don't. Who would?
I don't want to mention names from now. You know, it's like as looking from things from afar as an analyst, you can imply certain things. You can pinpoint certain things, not directly, but indirectly. You can do your analysis and then people can take the clue out of what you have said. Sometimes, if you go forward to mention specific names, it will appear as though you are muddying some waters, and it's not a good way to project yourself as an analyst.
Right.
You must be objective and put the things bare for people to make choices from what you have said.
All right.
So I don't want to mention specific names, but of course, if you listen to me carefully, you can understand where I was arriving at.
All right. Thank you for that assessment as far as the 5 who have picked nomination forms are concerned. Let me come to you, Dr. Amache Boateng. So from your reading, at least it is clear, like has been mentioned, the former member of parliament for Mampong, Adainimo, he may not have that political clout in terms of sellability. What do you see in the rank and file of those who have put themselves forward? For now, we have Boachie Jako, we have Adainimo, we have Kwabena Ejapong, we have the current vice president, Dr. Mahamudu Bawumia. What do you see when you look at these people who have picked up the forms? Hello, Doc. If you got the question, you may have to unmute.
Okay, sorry for that. I think I'm through now.
You are.
Yes. I was saying that it's an interesting development, and then as it is, we know some people are here to, be added to the number. But for now, you want to look at this. Generally, in elections in Ghana, when we have a political turnover, you want to do an analysis there to tell exactly what really happens. And then a party loses the elections and then the opposition wins and come in. And some of us have come to an understanding, and also from readings in the literature, have come to an understanding that there's a middle class in Ghana that plays the role of a king-making. And so we want to look at what these people look out for. And let's not forget about the fact that these middle class people also are able to influence a large number of the rank and file. And I like to believe that currently some feeding issues confronting Ghana include the economic challenge with the associated unemployment, political bureaucratic corruption, and crucially galamsey. So you want to look for the individual who will have this critical ingredient, the political will to address these issues, given the fact that it's also a known fact that members of the party in government, key members of the party in government tend to be involved, especially in the Galamsey. When you talk of political bureaucratic corruption, the political angle almost always comes from, members of the, party in government. So who among these individuals will have the political will to look, in the face of their own and simply deal with them publicly? I'd like to believe that members of the middle class will be interested in some of these questions. And then what also do they bring on board as potential presidents of the country? How knowledgeable are they generally of development issues? And then the politics associated with it, are they able to, manage the interest coming from their own party? Politics is driven by interest. Interest coming from their own party vis-a-vis the need, if you like, to amass wealth. And in developing countries, it's almost, becoming clear that people's political purposes, tend to give an indication that people go into really amass wealth. In the literature, you come across terms like politics being used to refer to politics in developing countries. One author openly characterizing politics in Africa as bad. Africa's bad politics. They all make references to this. Various characterizations of the African state all indicate that people go in to appropriate state resources. So who among these people, has got the guts to look at their own in the face and take a strong decision? I think the middle class will be interested in that. They are also going to be interested in who will be able to, fearlessly fight the Galamsey menace. Because if we don't address this challenge, we know we, shooting ourselves as a nation in the foot. We freely allowing a major resource gold to go into the hands of individuals. And ironically, Ghana now is in a terrible financial situation. And yet we are not able to protect the gold that Ghana can easily turn to help, address the economic challenges. So I think the middle class will be interested in some of these issues, and on the basis of that, they will also affect the outcome of the real elections. I don't think it's going to be business as usual, and I expect a good many people from the middle class to be actively involved in the ensuing politics that will lead to the elections of 2024.
All right.
So all the people there, as it is, you are tied. You can't mention names, and at times you don't have all the relevant data about them. You don't have the opportunity to see them. You're only looking at them from a distance. So looking at these people, I think the questions I've raised will come to play in telling who might eventually win the national elections. I'm not looking at the primaries. After the primaries, the dynamics there, to me, differ. I don't expect the issues are raised to play themselves out in the primary. And like Prof said, the ultimate thing is that they should bring a winnable person. So if you go in for someone who would have played to the gallery within the party, but then won't be able to, win the ultimate president, the office of the president, then definitely, the party wouldn't have simply helped itself.
Dr. Mohammed, when you look at these candidates that have been presented, what do you see to be their merits and demerits, briefly?
Looking at them from a distance, you see that they come in with various expertise, different from one another. And I'll look at the merits relative to their ability, one, to grow the economy, to help stem the challenge of political and economic bureaucracy, to be able to fight Galamsey. I'll look at, say, Kabinat J, Japan. The days leading to his being chased out of the party, you could see that he demonstrated a strong political will, a principled individual, ordinarily you want to endorse him. Ordinarily, you want to endorse him. He's tough, he's strong, he's principled. And that is what makes what political scientists call a hard state. So he comes in with that, but then his major challenge will be maybe he might not have had the opportunity to endear himself to a large number of Ghanaians. Mr. Adenimo has been around for a while. I think he's contested before, and yet it's difficult to say that you can easily market him. You know, I have difficulty saying that. I'm not also in a position to properly assess his strength, given the fact that he's not had the opportunity to play a significant role in the public affairs of the country. Dr. Preku comes in with a critical ingredient. A political economist of a school in Japan, Kenichi Ono, argues that poor countries need leaders who are knowledgeable, and he said that they should have some key knowledge in economics. He argues they need not necessarily, have degrees in it, but they should be able to address economic issues so that they will be able to understand the pieces of advice that come, to them.
Right.
And also, economics, at the end of the day, after the election of candidates, economics play a critical role in, the affairs of states. And so he argues strongly. And so Dr. Preku comes in with these credentials. Quickly, let me say the same thing about Dr. Bawumia. Demonstrated, excellence in his knowledge of economic issues. And of course, he's also coming in with critical experience. He's coming from the Bank of Ghana. He's coming from the office of the Vice President. He has experience that none of the other contestants, have. And so obviously he will stand tall. He's almost the public face of the NPP now, after Nana Dankwa Akufo-Addo is the number 2 man in the country. And so he stands very, very tall among, the individuals who have come.
Right.
I have a personal challenge with Dr. Akoto Afriye because of the fact that Ghana continues to buy tomatoes from Burkina Faso. I have a personal challenge with him. And seriously, fine. Let me just leave it like that.
Okay. So moving the conversation forward, Dr. Mohammed, if you can hear me, I'll start the next. In fact, we're winding down on the conversation now, but I'd like you to react to this. I'm going to pose 2 questions to all of you, and within about a minute, if you can address the 2, I'd be grateful. The first has to do with this. Can any of these people who have picked the form so far, can any of them, do you feel, tackle Ghana's problems? To wit, can any of these candidates also break the 8? That is the first question. Can any of these candidates really tackle Ghana's problems, those that have put themselves forward for the NPP? Can they break the 8? And the second question, I'm curious. In the midst of all of this, we don't have a lot of talk about women in politics at this level. We talk about women in parliament and all of that and at the grassroots level, but aren't we concerned that with the NDC, there's no woman who contested for the flag bearership slot? In the NPP, we're not seeing any woman going for that slot. 2 quick questions in a minute, if you can, gentlemen. I'll start with you, Dr. Mohammed.
Yeah, so very interesting development. I think looking at it from 2020, prior to the 2020 elections, there was a particular perspective that was very clear that the Bawumia and Alan competition in the party was very obvious, that no other person could match them. But after the 2020 elections, the development in this country, as Dr. Mate said, has changed certain dynamics. And if listening to some NPP, very strong NPP delegates, there is a changing wind. And that wind is blowing strongly in favor of those that we think are unpopular. Now, that wind is blowing from the thinking of these people that those who are actually in government, so we are talking of the vice president, you are talking about the Akotos, you are talking about the Allans, they are becoming unpopular gradually. Right. I don't know to the extent to which we can substantiate that scientifically, but they are becoming unpopular for one reason, that the economy and the country is facing challenges, and that is an open secret that everybody is aware. And for that matter, some of the delegates are beginning to feel like if they present any of these popular people who have been part of this, put in quote, they be part of the cause of the challenges that we have in this country. And I think Mate talked about Akoto not doing well in the agri sector, and that one has been so obvious. I personally have that challenge there. Then when it came to Baumia, and so good economist, but unfortunately his knowledge in economics was not able to rescue us to an extent. And sometimes I feel so bad that we are, with all this high level of training, we've not been able to make use of him at the time that we need him most, because this is the time that the economy is struggling, and this is the time that we need people with that background, classical economics or development economics, and he has that background in terms of training. But I am not so comfortable with the development in terms of his ability to make the changes or to influence the changes.
Right.
So there's a growing wind that people who are so much involved in causing the challenges that we have today might be one of the main reasons that may influence the elections. And you'll not be surprised that some of them are really gaining grounds and going around the country and then talking to a lot of people, especially from the side of the NPP. You can see people beginning to move away from such persons, Alan Baumia, and moving towards to some of those that we think are unpopular. And in that development, if it continues this way for the next few months before the elections, if the economy is not going to make changes or things are not getting well, that wind will blow strongly against the so-called Baumia and Alan, and then those who have been part of government up to date. Right. So I won't be surprised that come October or November, when these primaries are conducted, and then you begin seeing some interesting development in terms of the disappointment from some of these people. Then you talked about the woman factor, and I have been talking about this for a long time, that, look, we have grown so far that the women are not really moving forward. I would have been out to support any woman from any of the political parties that come with that kind of confidence to contest the primaries of any of the parties. And I would have been supporting that woman for the fact that she's courageous, and as women who are now more than 50% of the population, so I've been able to demonstrate that that section of the population is worthy of consideration. And I am a bit disappointed that we have not had that courage from the Ghanaian women, and I'm calling on them. And I hope that maybe those who are going to consider the running mates, that may be a factor that I will be very happy to see from both sides of the divide, NPP and NDC and all the other political parties, to think of a woman being a running mate. I think that women have so energy that we have not tapped into for the development of this country, and it's time for us to look into their faces and then take what we can take from them. So generally, I think, yes, this elections is going to be a tough one. At the beginning, it was conclusive from, let's say, a year ago, that Alan or Baumia are going to lead. But now, it is not so conclusive, and the competition is going. And I don't think any of them are just taking the forms and then for nothing. They have something to take, and then the competition could be more greater come few months. And October, we should expect that at the end of the day, something good will come. Anybody should not be surprised. Anybody should not be surprised that the big names may be disappointed.
All right, thank you, Doc, for those thoughts. Just a quick reminder that the likes of Ekuya Donko and Bridget Jogbanuku, in fact, Nana Kunedo Ajiman Rawlings, all of them have also put themselves forward at a point. And in terms of the votes that they got, that is also another angle that we could be looking at. Are we even ready for this? Dr. Amachi Boateng, quick thoughts on that? Doc, if you can hear me, I think I can hear the noise in the background, so I think I can hear you.
Okay, I hope I'm through.
You're through. Please go ahead.
On the issue of breaking the 8, I was saying that personally, for some time now, I've been looking at that vis-a-vis what is becoming a pattern in Ghanaian politics. Pattern that dictates that at the end of an 8-year period, the party in government is sent home. And I argue here that this does not just happen, because the 8-year period enables people to do a fair assessment of the performance of the party in office. And generally with politics, especially democratic politics, you know, after the elections and stuff like that, the politics plays out. That notwithstanding, what becomes a dominant issue is economics and the way it affects the life of people. And so looking at where Ghana finds itself now, and especially on the heels of statements like, I will protect the public purse. And then key statements made by Dr. Bawumia to the effect that on the issue of schools under trees, challenges faced by schools in villages and stuff like that, explicitly stating that after 2 years in government, that they will address all those issues. As we speak now, none of them has been addressed. So the party faces an uphill task. You're asking whether there's any among them who will be able to break the 8. I'm saying there isn't any. In fact, I teach politics at the university, and there's this dynamism in democratic politics that work for the ordinary citizen, and that is the politics of development, is the politics of change. If parties in government do not perform, the only thing to get the politicians to pay attention to the electorates, and for that matter, the citizens, is to change them. Politicians are only afraid of the next elections, Ben. So what I personally expect, because of these developments that have helped several democracies around the world eventually to do well, I expect the same change to happen.
Right.
I don't expect any miracle to happen between now and the time we go, you know, in to elect our parliamentarians and then our president. I don't expect any miracle.
All right. On the bit about women in our politics, very quickly on that.
It's an interesting thing. You know what? You want to stay with the NPP and the NDC on the grounds that they are the two parties that have produced presidents in the Fourth Republic. So that if you have women coming out in smaller political parties, that is an insignificant role played by women in our politics. So the first thing to take note is the fact that so far, the two major parties have not produced even a woman candidate in their party. That's the first thing to take note of. And to, on the basis of that, to conclude that women aren't playing significant roles in our party. Some of them believe that there are certain constraints placed, in the part of women, where politics itself is a tough thing. Wherever you come across the democratic politics is tough. Nothing comes about on a silver platter. So those who want to really come out should be prepared to do what is expected of them. So we encourage our women, to back up. So I will just stay there. Women haven't been playing significant roles. The numbers are not encouraging in Parliament. The numbers in terms of appointees are not encouraging.
Right.
Over there, where we have it in our capacity to, if you like, at least address the challenge, where presidents do their appointments. Ghana has no excuse, because we have as many well-educated, experienced women in Ghana as we have men. So at least in the areas of appointment, Ghana finds itself in a capacity to at least bring on board as many women as possible.
Right.
We don't do it. So at least I would say that is a constraint, if you like, placed, in the part of women as far as their active political participation is concern.
Right. Interesting thoughts you've shared, Dr. Amache Boateng. Prof, you'll have the final take on those 2 points. I hope you can encapsulate those within some 2 minutes. Hello, Prof.
Hello, Benjamin. Can you
I can hear you now. Please go ahead.
Great. I'll start with the issue of the women. Honestly speaking, and we must be very frank about this, considering the nature of Ghanaian politics, to get a woman as a flag bearer of a political party in this country is going to take some time.
How much time?
A long time. I'll tell you why.
20 years, 50 years?
Well, I
10
can
years?
only say long time. What you consider to be a long time can be different in different contexts. It's just like independence now and independence in the shortest possible time. So I think it will take some time, quite a long time. Because you see, the monetization of Ghanaian politics doesn't allow people with the needed experience, the knowledge base, to get into political positions. To become a flag bearer or a standard bearer of a political party in Ghana demands a lot of financial strength. You know, not long ago, we were told that it was going to cost about $100 million or so, or $80 million for somebody to become the standard bearer of a political party in this country, just to contest the election as a standard bearer. How many women in this country have that kind of financial strength? And you see, my own research about Parliament itself and its view of men and women. I have a research paper on the discursive construction of men and women, gender in Ghanaian parliamentary discourse. And even among the MPs, if you look at their concepts of conceptualization of women and men, it tells you that it's going to take a long time for us to appreciate that we need a lot more women in positions of governance, in positions of authority.
Right.
Sometimes there's that kind of acknowledgement that women can do it. But putting the right measures in place is so difficult. You remember the affirmative action bill. Where is it now? And how far have we gone with it? So for me, the most important thing now for women in this country is to target a lot more of, let's say, parliamentary positions in the various political parties. Can the few MPs in parliament, the women in parliament, stand up one day and say that until in the next primaries, until we see that a lot more women have been allowed to go, for example, unopposed, to contest positions in the strongholds of, say, the NPP and the NDC, we are not going to go to parliament.
Right.
And we are going to take parliament hostage. And this can push the political parties to take action. Now, the NDC has already done its primaries. How many women were able to get in there? You know, a lot more women don't have the ability to get the kind of money involved in courting delegates to vote for them. So it's so difficult. It's difficult for women to get that opportunity.
Right.
And to get an affirmative action from the political parties, we are not going to get there.
Okay.
And so I think what we have to target is the issue of the affirmative action, especially on the part of the two major political parties, the NDC and the NPP.
Prof, we're going to have to hang the conversation here. We're grateful, gentlemen, that you joined the conversation. Of course, you just heard Professor Kwabena Safu-Kantanka, senior lecturer at the University of Cape Coast. We also had Dr. Asa Sumaila Mohammed, senior lecturer, CK Tedam University of Technology and Applied Sciences. And of course, Dr. Kwesi Amache Boateng, political scientist at the Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology. Gentlemen, thank you so much for your time with us this morning.
Thank you. And have a blessed day.
Same to you. Well, still to come, we're moving away from the politics and talking agriculture. Well, a former agricultural minister is gunning for the NPP's flag bearership slot, but his legacy is being called into question. I'm talking about Planting for Food and Jobs. The Peasant Farmers Association has put together a report. They've been digging deep into government's spending as far as the agriculture budget is concerned. They talk about engagements as far as fertilizers are concerned. And there is a lot of talk about those on the ground, seedlings they are receiving, fertilizers they are receiving, and the impact this is having. We have that conversation this morning as we are joined by our guests in the sector, including the Peasant Farmers Association. They, of course, will be walking us through what exactly is happening and whether Planting for Food and Jobs as a flagship program is meeting what we expected of it. That conversation up next on the AM show with Bernice Abibata Lanza. Do stay.
Hello there. Thank you so much for staying here on the Joy News channel, your most credible news source. This is the AM show, and we continue our conversations. Our next big story is about the Peasant Farmers Association of Ghana's assessment of the Planting for Food and Jobs program for 2022. Now, let me just share a few of the findings with you. The association found that government's inability to spend the budget that has been allocated for agriculture as planned continues to hamper efforts towards achieving the Sustainable Development Goal 2, which is zero hunger by 2030. The Ministry of Food and Agriculture only spent 72% of the ministry's approved budget from 2018 to 2020, despite the substantial increases in allocations year on year. They also discovered that late payment to fertilizer companies affects the ability of companies to deliver and threatens the sustenance of the program. Now, about 80% of respondents complained of poor quality of fertilizers, while 15% agreed that quality met their expectations. This morning, I've been joined by Dr. Charles Nyaba. He's Executive Director of the Peasant Farmers Association of Ghana. Doc, it's a pleasure to have you here. We always speak over the phone or via Zoom. It's good to have you in our studios. And just before you had that meeting or that gathering of stakeholders to come up with these findings, I engaged you, and now the findings are out and you're here to share them with us. Just for purposes of setting a tone for the conversation and for those who've not been following the conversation over the period, just run us through why the Peasant Farmers Association decided to embark on this research and how you gathered the data.
Thank you very much. I think I'm new here. I used to come here almost every day some years back, but this time around I'm more on the field. Yeah, so this is not the first time we've done this. When the fertilizer subsidy program was introduced in 2009, I think Kofo's regime before he left power, we were the first to assess the coupon system of fertilizer distribution. And this is dear to us because when you talk of agriculture programs or policies, it is only the smallholder farmers who are targeted. So these interventions are always targeting our members. We are about 1 million plus members, and if you take smallholder farmers across the country, they constitute about 80% of the farmer population, and they contribute the food we eat for export and for industry. So anytime government roll out a program that is targeting the agriculture sector, we are interested to see how it is impacting on our members.
Right.
So since 2009, we've been following the fertilizer subsidy program. It even got a point, I think that was in 2012, 2013, 2016. We constitute what we call fertilizer watchdogs, where we place our members in the various border towns, where the fertilizer was usually smuggled to neighboring countries to check the smuggling. So this year's assessment is not different from what we've been doing. Last year, we did the same thing, submitted the findings to the ministry, which was actually considered. some of the implementation strategies that we've seen last year was as a result of some of the engagements that we've been doing based on the findings we did previously.
Right.
For instance, we observed that in the past years, there were instances where fertilizer importers report a figure of fertilizer that is supplied to farmers. In real sense, that is not the exact quantities that go to the farmers. So we recommended the use of ICTs for the distribution. So if you see 2022, for instance, ICT company, Broad Spectrum, was actually engaged to do the distribution. So this year assessment is just part of our annual activities to always assess government implementation of agriculture program to be able to recommend for either reforms, modification, or change of strategy. Now, the other thing that also informed this year assessment was when the previous minister resigned to contest for the NPP flag bearership, and the new minister was coming. We thought that it was important for us to update him of developments on the field. So we quickly speed up the data gathering to be able to also provide him with information to inform his strategy in going forward.
Interesting. Once you've brought in the issue of fertilizers, let me just ask you, because you've been doing this over the period, the former Agri Minister you just cited, I remember we brought reports where he visited neighboring bordering towns.
Yeah.
And he was complaining about smuggling, not only of fertilizers, but other produce, which government had created some programs to help in subsidizing. So sorghum, for example, am I right? Am I right? Yes. So we were smuggling those when there had been some investment in that sector to help farmers produce at a lower cost here in the country so that we could feed the consumers here. He appeared as frustrated as the farmers. That's the minister who was supposed to be helping deal with the problem of smuggling. Would you say that things have gotten better or worse?
Yeah, so in terms of input smuggling, let's be specific on fertilizer. I think if you look at last year, it was rather the reverse. Okay. This has never happened in the history of Ghana. Our farmers were rather going to Togo and Burkina and buying fertilizer to Ghana because our fertilizer was so expensive than even the neighboring countries. So there were a lot of questions. If you
the subsidized ones were expensive, or you're talking about the regular ones?
The subsidized one was more expensive than the open market fertilizer in Burkina and Togo. Wow. So if you look at the report, there were instances where farmers cited example. If you take a Chirponi, for instance, the farmers were saying that they have two types of fertilizer in Togo. You know, Chirponi is very closer to Togo. One is very expensive, which was costing around 227 Ghana cedis if you change it to Ghana cedis. And then the other one was going for 270 Ghana cedis. But when you compare the same one, the subsidized one in Ghana, it was going for 320 Ghana cedis. So instead of them even looking for the Ghana subsidized one, most of them were going there.
Well, what's accounting for the price difference? Does it have anything to do with quality? Does it have anything to do with quantity? What exactly, or these are the same products that are going for different prices?
So those were the questions we keep asking. If you look at 2022, I mean, the development was so strange to us. The government was subsidized fertilizer, and at the same time, the company that is selling the subsidized fertilizer is able to sell open market fertilizer at the same price as the subsidized fertilizer. So those were the questions the farmers were asking. That if you subsidize 15%, and a company which is selling the subsidized fertilizer which costs the farmer 320 Ghana cedis for the 50 kg, and the same company is willing to sell the same fertilizer to the farmer for 320 Ghana cedis or even less, then we were asking questions. Is it really subsidized?
Was it that government was not paying these companies, and so the farmers were not feeling the effect of the subsidy program?
Yeah, so I think so many factors went in. Companies were on the program not because they think that it was making profit. As we spoke to some of the companies, they said they just have to be on because this is government program and they don't know how the future looks like. Because you supply fertilizer under the subsidy and it has to take you more than 2 years to get paid. Meanwhile, the money you are receiving does not account for inflation, does not account for exchange rate differential, and most of them also take money from banks. So when they are coming on the program, they have to inflate the prices. For instance, if they will sell the subsidy for, let's say, 300, the open market for 320 without subsidy, they will give price to government that, okay, they will sell for 350. So if government even subsidize, at the end of the day, they will still sell at the open market price as subsidy.
But,
okay.
So are there no checks and balances? Because if, per your findings, did you find that government had a way of ensuring that these companies that were signed onto the program were actually subsidizing the fertilizers as they had to?
They do, because the price I mentioned are prices that are jointly fixed by the government and the companies. But what is happening is that, you see, when you are familiar with the fertilizer industry, you realize that we have farmers have what they call premium fertilizer. Okay, so it's not all the fertilizer that sells at the same price. Even today, as we speak, there's a fertilizer that's going for 300 Ghana cedis, and the same brand is going by another company for 450 Ghana cedis. Okay, so companies go in and bid with the quality, with the promise that they will supply certain quality fertilizer. But the moment they get contracts and they start supplying, then they supply inferior fertilizer. So if you
That's why I was asking whether there was a monitoring scheme. Did you see that from the government side, that there was constant monitoring to ensure that what they had agreed on was being implemented on the ground?
So I think it is the role of the Plant Protection and Regulatory Services Directorate to ensure that they give certification to companies to import fertilizer, and at the same time monitor to ensure that the fertilizer they supply meet the qualities that they promise to supply. But in many instances, as we spoke to the farmers, PPRD is not empowered enough to be able to monitor some of the communities. So some of the companies take advantage of that to sell inferior quality products to the farmers. There are many instances where fertilizer was sent to farmers. They applied the fertilizer for more than a month. The fertilizer was just lying like clay. It never get dissolved. According to the farmers, such cases were reported to PPRD offices at the regional level. We also traced to speak to them. They said they forwarded the reports to the national level, and that some of them they are able to work on them. Some of the reports they are not able to do because farmers do not provide them with enough evidence to be able to trace those issues. So it means that whilst we make provision for subsidy, for input subsidies like seeds and fertilizer, we should have equally made provision for monitoring and evaluation.
Right.
But in most occasions, PPRD are left without any capacity to do that. You go to their regional offices and the officers are sitting there. They don't even have fuel, they don't have motorbikes to be able to visit some of these farming communities to ensure that the products they receive under the subsidy actually met the qualities that the companies promised to supply. So most of the places, and I'm happy with that, the subsidized fertilizer will be there, the price is lower, but farmers will opt to go for the higher price because of the quality. I was speaking to some farmers who want us to supply them fertilizer this year. There are two companies. A company is willing to supply fertilizer for 320 Ghana cedis. Another company is supplying for 450 Ghana cedis. They are telling me I should bring the one which is costing 450 Ghana cedis.
Because of the quality of
yes, because they've come to realize that it's better to invest in quality than to just follow the price.
And this will translate into the prices of the produce, finally, for us consumers.
Of course, because farmers have come to realize that with the PFJ fertilizer, even though price is cheaper, when they supply, in most occasions, it doesn't really meet the performance that they are expecting. So most of them, it got to a time, actually, PFJ fertilizer will be available, but they will opt for the open market fertilizer.
So the cost is not only a problem, the quality also is. But the Planting for Food and Jobs program decided to encourage, more farmers to start going organic, right?
Yeah.
And so there were some training for farmers on how to even, create organic fertilizer themselves. What was your finding on that scale as well?
Yeah, I think that is the way to go. And then even as an organization, we ourselves are promoting organic fertilizer. So if you look at last year, we distributed a lot of organic fertilizer to most of the farmers in the various areas. But there are some issues. We still have a long way to go with the organic fertilizer. Most of the farmers who received the organic fertilizer and applied it, according to them, it leads to a very good vegetative part of the plant. You see the crops looking greeny. If, say, it grains, the leaves will look green, they will grow well. But when it comes to seeds formation, it's very poor. So it means there's something that is lacking. Most of the organic fertilizer do not actually contain the formulations that the inorganic fertilizer contains. Apart from that, farmers are looking for quick action, and they are looking for money. So what we need to do, and I remember I have engagement with AGRA, Alliance for Green Revolution in Africa, who have also come out with a formulation and a leaflets guiding how organic fertilizers should be used to be efficient. That in the initial stage, they recommend that we combine the organic fertilizer with some chemical fertilizer because there are some nutrients that are usually lacking in the organic fertilizer. But when we combine with that, we are able to get the maximum performance. Per our assessment, most of the retailers that we engage in, according to them, they could not actually sell the quantities of organic fertilizer that they took. Not necessarily because the organic fertilizers are bad. It's partly because farmers still need to be properly sensitized. Okay. When the chemical fertilizer were first introduced to farmers, it was given to them for free. Actually, some farmers were awarded for using the chemical fertilizer because farmers were not interested in actually accepting it. So over time, when they continue giving them and doing sensitization and farmers were getting results, then they started charging. And that comes out today. A farmer cannot produce without using chemical fertilizer. Now, looking at the negative implication of chemical fertilizer to the environment, to our own health, to the economy, and to the farmer himself, I think it is about time we begin to also invest in the organic fertilizer. So one good part that I would like to give credit to the ministry for doing last year is the promotion of the organic fertilizer. Last year, there were a lot of promotion on the organic fertilizer, except that farmers actually didn't uptake them.
So one of the biggest challenges for many people when it comes to the Planting for Food and Jobs program is the reflection of cost on the markets and the availability of food eventually. We know that there are many reasons that account for that. So I think a year or two ago, there were issues about flooding up north, which caused or destroyed a lot of the farm produce. There are also concerns about transportation, the preservation of food. And so the Peasant Farmers Association, DOC, has been making some recommendations to government. And one of them has to do with not only focusing on the inputs or the initial stage of the farming process, which has to do with planting, which is providing of seeds and provision of fertilizers to aid in the growth of the crops. You want more. Share with us.
Yeah, so we think that if you look at the Planting for Food and Jobs, the program was properly designed with 5 pillars. And these 5 pillars were addressing all the chains in the value chain. If I say all part of the chain, I'm looking at production, I'm looking at mechanization, I'm looking at processing, we are looking at marketing and post-harvest management. But during the implementation stage, for unknown reason, the focus has been on only fertilizer and seeds. Per our assessment, most of the places we went, the extension officers were virtually non-existent. You go to a place and they have one extension officer to 1,700 farmers. And even with that extension officer, he is not capacitated enough to be able to visit these farmers. There are motorbikes.
1 to 1,700.
Okay, so in many instances, the extension officers are there for more than months without actually going to the field. So the extension pillar, which was part of the PFJ, has actually not gotten enough attention compared to fertilizer and seed pillar. There's another pillar which is looking at the marketing pillar, which is very crucial to us, because we are thinking that if you support farmers and they're able to improve on their productivity, what you need to do is to ensure that you create market opportunities for them. But the marketing pillar was ignored. The only time we had the planting for food and jobs, talking about planting for food and job market, was a plantain market that was created by the Minister at the Ministry of Food and Agriculture. And that market lasted for only 2 weeks. And even with that, the focus was only on plantain. Now, the kind of marketing we are talking about is not for the ministry to go down and gather produce and put at a particular place to sell. We are looking at a marketing that creates a linkage between the farmer and the buyer, so that they continue to engage in business transactions, so that at all times, these buyers are able to identify areas where demands of certain commodities are needed. Then they will convey the goods there. But that was not done. Now, even as part of the marketing arrangement, the most serious flaw that the ministry did was to impose restriction on some of the commodities. You know, if you take soya, for instance, we don't consume soya like to say you cook, you have to process it. The only time we consume soya as a commodity in Ghana is if we are able to process it and then we get the soya oil or use the cake for other things. Okay? So when fertilizer prices became so high, most soya farmers, maize and rice farmers, shifted to production of soya, because with soya you don't need too much fertilizer to produce. You go to most of the soya growing areas and farmers pack their warehouses with soya, only for them to be told that they cannot sell their soya outside Ghana. Now within Ghana, those who are supposed to buy the soya are the poultry farmers and the local soya processors, because the poultry farmers will buy from the processors. These companies do not have capacity to process. So after the restriction, they engage in rather going to get permits from the ministry, and they will now buy from the farmers at a very cheap price and export without doing the processing. So it became a serious issue among the farmers. And as we speak, farmers still packed with soya and they can't sell because of that restriction. So on the marketing arrangement, that was why the government...
Sorry to interject, but the restriction was because, as we are told, there was some form of government support for the production of the soya, or is it the case that it wasn't provided for all farmers?
You see, that is the wrong information I always want to correct when I get opportunity like this. You see, people who are not closer to the production, when they hear of planting for food and jobs, they think that the inputs are given for free. It is not the case. The support they are talking about is the subsidy I just explained, subsidizing fertilizer for farmers. And I tell you, majority, about 80%, never benefited from the subsidized fertilizer. Because if you put subsidy and the price of your subsidy is the same as that of the open market, okay, you cannot tell me that I bought your fertilizer. Apart from that, the supply was far, far lower than the number of farmers who demand that fertilizer. So majority of soya farmers actually did not use the planting for food and job fertilizer to produce their soya. So you cannot say that it is because you are subsidizing, you should restrict where I sell it, when in actual fact, your subsidy did not reach me.
So there are warehouses now that are currently stocked with
individual farmers.
Individual farmers have stocked
of soybeans that they can't sell.
They can't sell.
So now when you go to those communities that are closer to the border towns, even though government restricted it, but because they have to survive, because they have to produce, they are smuggling it through the borders to go and sell. So how can a country that is hosting African Free Trade Continental Area, which is supposed to lead in free trade among the neighboring countries, is now restricting your own farmers from selling when you are not actually providing market for them to sell in country. So it means you are telling them that they should go out of production.
Doc, the interesting thing for me about the smuggling is it's not done, sometimes it's done in the full glare of the public. Sometimes you don't find that the farmers, there are sometimes in truckloads, videos and pictures that we've seen. So you wonder how they're even able to smuggle. But let me come to the next step, the reason why you embarked on this assessment. In my last conversation with you before the meeting was had and the document was produced, you suggested that the new Agric Minister was more open and more welcoming to your suggestions and ideas. Have you been able to meet him? Have you had a discussion? Have you shared these findings with him? And if you have, what was his response?
Yeah, actually, I think we at peasant farmers, we don't want the impression to always be created as if we are anti-governments. I use governments because I think we always get our blessing from both sides when they are in power. But where you see a minister being responsive to calls of a smallholder farmer, you need to put it clear. When he came to power, actually, we were among the first people that he called for consultation.
Okay.
During the validation, I mean, there was a member of his team who actually sat throughout the discussion, took the points that were discussed there. Immediately after the meeting, they still called me to say the findings, which I said, and they promised that most of the recommendations that were said will be considered in the new program that will be rolled out. And I'm told that within this week, the new strategic plan will actually be launched. So for us, I think so far so good with our engagement with him. So if we should continue like that, maybe we will make a headway.
Right. So he initiated a conversation with the Peasant Farmers Association.
Yes, please.
Okay. So moving forward, I mean, I think the most important thing for many people is how all of this affects me personally. How does it affect my pocket when I go to the market to go and buy food stuff? How does it affect food security, which is very, very important because many people say we complain, oh, there's no power, there's so, but we can manage that. But when there's no food, it's quite hard. So what is the future looking like? We are in May, just wrapping up the month. Per your assessment and your conversations with farmers across the country, are we likely to see better prices on the market, or the status quo remains?
Yeah, so things will definitely improve. Even though the new minister is here to roll out what he called the agro model. And the agro model is looking at all parts of the chain, from production to mechanization to post-harvest management to marketing. And if that is done, as I said earlier on, it means that our constraint will not be only on the inputs, but issues of mechanization, and that is going to be led by the private sector. You know, already government was struggling in paying fertilizer importers and seed importers under the Planting for Food and Jobs. So this is going to be a private sector led, like creating the environment for the private sector to engage with the farmers to provide those services. And I believe that if that is properly done, it is likely to lead to some improvement, because farmers will not now be compelled to buy inferior quality products that were supplied under the previous PFJ, but they have the choice to decide which company product they want to uptake. Now, if you talk of this year, what is happening? I returned from the field last Friday. I went to plant my maize. And when I went, most of the farmers around, that's in the middle belt, Kintampo, most of the farmers around there were planting. Okay, northern sector, it rained and people started plowing. And all of a sudden, as at last week to this week, there are no rains. So no work is seriously going on. But I can tell for a fact a number of people who have developed interest to go into production this year. Okay. And they call for support for seeds, fertilizer, and what have you. So if that vein should continue, we are likely to see some improvement in terms of food supply.
I need you to clarify this a bit. You're projecting good times if the private sector is heavily involved in across the board in the entire value chain.
Yeah.
But there are many people who fear that privatizing or heavily depending on the private sector to help develop the agri sector will translate into having to pay for more. That's the notion.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that assertion, but it depends on the angle we looked at it. Because you see, the current or the previous approach, already government was not involved anyway. Because I told government is involved, yet prices of government support was the same as that of the open market. But this one, what we are looking at is government create the enabling environment, play the monitoring role, and then link the private actor with the farmer and regulate the input price. Okay? For instance, if fertilizer is coming and government will take off all taxes, all duties on the fertilizer, making the price to come down, and then subsidize credit rate or interest rate for the private person to go and take the loan with a lower interest, it is likely that private person will be able to provide the services at a lower cost than even if you allow government intervention. Now let me also hold this factor. We can do all these things, but because our agriculture is so much dependent on rainfall, if the weather is not favorable, it may also affect the supply. So we need to do and pray, which shouldn't be the case. So one of our recommendations were that the amount of money that is put into fertilizer subsidy, greater components should rather be used to create irrigation to ensure that during drought, farmers are able to rely on those water to work. If you look at most of the countries that did well with agriculture, you take Israel number one. We are all aware of Israel's story. Even if you don't want to go there, let's go to Egypt. Egypt used the Nile Valley to develop the agriculture sector, and Egypt is one of the leading suppliers of most of the commodities. Ghana, we have more water sources than those countries. Apart from the sea, there are a lot of rivers running around. We allow all this water to run into the sea. So we think that if the money that is used for fertilizer subsidy, that farmers think that they do not get enough value for it, is rather used to create more available water. It will help farmers to produce all year round. In areas where we have few irrigation, like the Pong, Tono, K2 North, and the rest, you go to those areas and you see the differences between the farmers there and those who are dependent on the rainfall. So I think those are the other things that we need to be mindful of.
I couldn't help but think about the One Village, One Dam project when you started talking about irrigation, because it was one of the reasons why that was created. Unfortunately, we've seen that hasn't done so well. What was the position of the Peasant Farmers Association when that plan was introduced, and how do you feel about the current state of affairs?
Yeah, so I think that was an ad hoc project as part of the government flagship program, and interacting with government officials, even members of a new patriotic party, they are all disappointed with the way the project was handled. You know, if you look at irrigation development in this country, it is Ghana Irrigation Development Authority who supervise development of every irrigation project, whether it's private or public. But the One Village, One Dam project was implemented by the
Ministry for Special
Initiative. And what they did were to just get contractors and give them contracts who do not have any knowledge in irrigation development. So they went there with excavators and with peel loaders, and they will just go and scour the soil, create a bank, and go. They don't do proper survey to even see that whether the place is a waterway. The district assemblies were left out. Ghana Irrigation Development Authority were left out. So you go there today, and most of the dams are even dried. Most of them too have already opened. There's one of such a One Village, One Dam project that was given to Ghana Irrigation Development Authority in Upper East, in a community called Vunania. We went to do assessment. I think it was even played on your studio. And you see a great differences between that dam and that of the One Village, One Dam. So we think that the conceptualization of the One Village, One Dam itself was not bad, to create dams for communities to be able to produce all year round. The problem was with the way it was handled. And we think it's not too late. We are ever ready to support the government with whatever ideas. And I know GIDA is also ready to support with them. If they can go back and really look at the design and pass through the proper implementation channel to get it done, it is a way to go.
I appreciate your time here. Dr. Charles Nyaba is Executive Director of the Peasant Farmers Association of Ghana. And we've been having a discussion on government's Planted for Food and Jobs program. The association, as we are told by Dr. Nyaba, has been assessing the program over the years. But this year in particular, they decided to fast track it because of what they see to be the readiness of the new Agric Minister in helping them achieve great success in that sector and with that program. Doc, thank you so much. We'll stay in touch with you, and hopefully your recommendations will be taken on, and we will see better results when it comes to our Agric sector. You're still watching the AM show. It's now time to bring you that feature on Ghana's decaying stadium. Samuel Kojo has been looking at how the Isipong Stadium in the Western region has been left to rot due to bad management.
Some stadia across the country were renovated in 2021 and at various stages of completion as follows. Accra Sports Stadium, 98%, Phase 1 of Babayara Stadium, 98%, Esipon Stadium, 90% complete, Cape Coast Stadium, 60%.
That was Ghana's Finance Minister, Ken Ofori-Atta, presenting the 2021 budget statement on the floor of Parliament. After his pronouncement, many Ghanaians, especially those in the Western region who knew the state of the stadium, became angry. One of them is the Member of Parliament for the Iskaduketen constituency, Joe Gate.
I write with regard to the above. The Finance Minister, in the budget statement delivered on Wednesday, 17th November 2021, stated that rehabilitation works on the Isipon Stadium is 90% complete. My checks reveal otherwise. As Member of Parliament for the area, I would be grateful if you could furnish me with the update of the said project, which is located in my constituency. Furthermore, if the information given is accurate, please furnish the Finance Minister with the accurate information to enable him advise himself accordingly. The project is of great interest to me and my constituents. Counting on your usual cooperation, respectfully yours, Joe Gate.
2 years after the pronouncement, I have come here today to see if anything has changed. What I see is nothing more than an eyesore. Outside, I noticed that some of the ceilings had completely been ripped off. The few pieces of wood and patches of ceiling that remain are falling off. The state of the restrooms is deteriorating. Nothing appeared to indicate a well-maintained stadium. To put it simply, the entire place is in shambles. When you come here, what you see are worn-out chairs with metals showing. It's a danger for people to be here. in its current state. The question you ask yourself is, where did we go wrong for such a national infrastructure to be left to rot to this level? Stephen Kwame Yeboah is a sports journalist here in the Western region.
We hosted the tournament in 2008, and from 2009 to 2019, that was when the then sports minister, Honorable Isaac Esiama, came to Sekondi to do inspection of the facility.
He says the former sports minister, Isaac Esiama, when he visited the stadium, was also shocked at the extent of wreckage and neglect. Like many footballing and sports enthusiasts who have been at the stadium, Honorable Isaac Esiama joined chorus of voices calling for the renovation of the stadium.
He even reiterated that they have a budget allocation for the renovation work, and it was going to be done in phases. So we were all of the assurance that, as he said, that the facility was built by the NPP government and they went to opposition and they are back. Once they are back in power, he will make sure that the facility is fixed. And from 2019 to 2021, that was November 2021, that was when the finance minister said that the renovation works at the Sekondi Sports Stadium was 90% complete. And to some of us, it came as a surprise because it's been a place that we visit regularly to find out what was really going on. And I remember the MP for Escado even came up to challenge them that, to his knowledge, he thinks that the facility is not up to 90%.
To Stephen Kwame Yeboah, it seems no one cares about the state of the Sekondi Sports Stadium, Isipon.
Sometimes I feel like we have big men in the region. We have MPs which, to the best of my knowledge, they are very influential in government. We have chiefs here, but it seems nobody cares about what is really happening to this particular facility here at the Sekondi Sports Stadium. And sometimes when it's like you begin to push too much, it's like you want to cry more than they bereave, because we have people who have been put in position to make sure that things works. But at the end of the day, it seems nobody cares.
He reveals that aside the roofing, nothing has happened since the then sports minister, Isaac Esiama, visited the facility.
Apart from the roofing, that I've seen that they started with the blasting. Apart from that, I've not seen any major works going on. That is from my personal observation. Apart from the roofing that I've seen that they've started working on it. Apart from that, they've not done anything.
He wants the leaders of the region to do better in advocating for the stadium to be rehabilitated.
It seems, like I said, we have leaders, we have chiefs here, we have big politicians here, which for me I know they are very influential in the NPP government, but it seems they are all not perturbed with what is really happening to this facility.
Benjamin Abuaji is also a sports journalist with Sky Power FM in Takrady. He has also been investigating why nothing seemed to be happening here.
Oh, what they told me was that the contractor left. I went there, I think, last 3 weeks or so. The contractor left because money was not coming. You get that? Yes, money was not coming, and if money is not coming, I think he uses materials and stuff for the project. And you and I know when you are going in for sea, sand, and those kind of things, it's sums of money. And if the money is not coming as it is, you can't spend whilst it's not coming.
He believes the bad performance of Sekondi Takrady-based clubs like 11 Wise and Azakes in the Premier League could also be the reason the stadium has not been renovated.
You ask yourself, sir, okay, so if the government renovates it, what will it be used for? Because now in Western region, the teams that can conjure that numbers to the stadium, because now if you rent Esipon Sports Stadium, NSA will not charge you not less than, let's say, 2,000. So you ask yourself, can this Division 1 teams pay 2,000? You see that? Can they pay 2,000 for the stadium? If they can't, nothing motivates the government to, because after motivating it, we have to maintain the stadium. I am not saying that they shouldn't do, they should do, they can do another activities there, but the main purpose of Esipon Sports Stadium is to use it for football or footballing activities.
A functioning sports stadium in Esipon brings patrons to businesses in this area. Residents want government to act to restore the stadium to its former glory. John is a resident of Esipon.
This stadium, when I came here, they said those days it was a very active stadium that they normally travel from some countries in Africa, Cote d'Ivoire, to come and play football matches over here. But of late, you see that it's in a very deplorable state, and then nothing seems to be happening over here. So I would say right now, the whole system, everything over here is dead. That's what I see. So I don't know what actually authorities are doing about it anyway.
Over the past 6 months, have you seen something happening here?
Actually, no. I come here always. I haven't seen anything happening here. Yeah.
As a Ghanaian, what would you tell government about this?
Actually, for government issue, I don't know. But you could see the recent World Cup that is going on in Qatar. You could see they have stadium. You see, stadium and then this kind of establishment, they are, I would say, they can generate revenue for the government. And then if the government can take the pain to renovate this stadium, not only that will it boost our Premier League. You see, there will be matches that will be held over here, will be played over here. And then the GFA, the government, they will generate revenue from this. And then businesses will be established around the stadium. This is a sports over here. I think this is the only sport around the area here. And you could see that apart from this sport, there's no other sport around. And then, so that's why I said earlier on that the whole system, the whole place is a dead end. And then nothing seems to be happening around this area. So if this stadium is being renovated, and then it will even attract business or entrepreneurs to establish businesses around, because when matches is ongoing over here, you will see that people would like to come around, have fun, and then so it's not only going to bring in entrepreneurs, but actually to generate revenue for the government and then maybe the GFA and then some other authorities. So it's good. They have to do something about it. We cannot just leave something so huge like this, just like that. We have to do something about it, yeah.
The claims by the finance minister that 90% of repair works have been completed are clearly not factual. The renovation works have been abandoned and very little is being done to restore the stadium to its former glory. For Joy News, Samuel Kojo Brace, Esipon.
Thank you so much for staying on the AM show. We'll be wrapping up shortly, but we appreciate your company here on the show. Earlier, you saw my colleague Benjamin Akakpo bringing you that conversation on the NPP's flag bearership race, having an interesting discussion with our analysts. But before that, we brought you that sad story involving an accident, a really, really disturbing one there. And then I had that conversation with Dr. Charles Nyaba, Executive Director of the Peasant Farmers Association, looking at the association's assessment of the Planting for Food and Jobs program. We'll be bringing you more shortly on News Desk. You want to stay for that. We delve into the issues that are making rounds this morning and bring you the developing stories as well. But on the AM show, that'll be all. Do stay with us. We are your most credible news source. Once again, thanks for your company.